All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Thank you for joining us here this evening for episode 8 of HLTV Confirmed. Let's get this one going. Let's introduce the regulars. Striker, what's your dream job?
What's what I'm doing, man? What
okay,
else?
That was a cop-out answer, so you're still going to get paid for Martin. That one's good. Prof, what is the most important issue your generation is facing?
Probably like the end of the world.
The fact that people keep using boomer and zoomer.
Okay, they're big issues. They're big issues. Yeah, Lucas, the producer, why do you want to win this beauty pageant?
Because I'm beautiful as fuck, man.
Okay, these are all great answers, guys. Now, before I introduce our guest, you can see waiting there, let me quickly give you guys an idea of what we'll be covering tonight. We're going to be looking at the Blast Premier, which is kicking off in a couple of days' time. We'll be taking a look at what we've learned about B-Site and ESL. Obviously, a lot of drama over the weekend. We'll be tapping into some of that. We're going to be looking at wrapping up DreamHack Leipzig over there, where big one. And of course, we're going to introduce to you guys Semmler. Semmler, how you going?
Not bad, man. I was bracing myself for a question. How do I solve world peace or something? But I guess I'm just doing fine, SPUNJ.
I'm just trying to get them to I want to get them activated real quick with stupid questions. Whereas like you've heard my stupid questions for years now. So for you, we'll say we won't worry about those. But look, we've got you here on the show, and I think the direction that our conversation is going to go might be a little bit different from how it was thought when we first organized to have you on the show. But let's get stuck in probably with the points that we were originally going to go with here. And this one here would be very simply your return to CSGO. You went over there, you did some Overwatch. The community in CSGO were a bit cunty, let's be honest. You went over there, you did some Overwatch stuff, and now you're back. You want to talk us through that whole journey?
I gotta lay it out there though. It wasn't because of the community. Everybody's always going on and on about how the community were ragging on me and everything like that. Oh, all right, SPUNJ. But like, it wasn't because of the community. It was because things fell apart with Room on Fire. Things fell apart with Anders and Moses. Things fell apart with all the things. And I was just like, you know what? Change of pace, change of scenery, and got an offer from Overwatch League at pretty much the perfect time when. It was either go to war in CS and stick around and it's not going to be pretty and it's not going to be fun, or fuck off for 2 years and then come back when things have calmed down and, the community
appreciates you again.
So I think a good question, I guess, for a lot of people at home would be, how is life different for you when you were, casting Counter-Strike and then doing the Overwatch stuff? Because a lot of people probably aren't aware of, what the day-to-day is like between those two things. It is quite a stark contrast, right?
For sure. Because you're pretty much out of a studio every day in the Overwatch, at least for the first 2 years that I was there, because now obviously that's the big news with Overwatch leagues, that they're fucking off on the road. So they're going to be all over the place with the homestands, which is exciting to see. Pretty much just all out LAN traveling all year, which is kind of what we were hoping, or like what we were working towards for these past 2 years. But the big difference was that, we were working out of a studio in Burbank every day. So one location, one area, team is all there. The players are live. It was just nonstop LAN. Production was all in one place. You get comfortable. You get into a rhythm. It doesn't even feel like, technically I lived on the road, but because it was always in the same area, it was way less stressful than what we'd gone through in CSGO, what you guys went through 2019, where you're just on the road perpetually, but it's always out of a hotel and it's always somewhere different. That was the working in Overwatch League was a much more stable sort of thing, because it was always LA, it was always Burbank, it was always that studio, same office, same people, and you got into a rhythm that way. So I guess that's probably the biggest difference between the two, because obviously if you work CSGO, you work a league, you're in one place for a month and a half, 2 months, but then you're off on the road again and and then it's hectic, man. It's hectic. You guys are machines.
Well, this is more of a personal question, I suppose. I'm curious, just like what Overwatch League gave you. Did you have like a big team behind you to help you do your job every day, or was it like what we have in Counter-Strike now? Same thing.
It gave me exactly what I was hoping to get out of it, which was experience in a corporate environment. Because that's what I knew, the freelance environment. That was CSGO. I knew what it was to freelance. I knew what it was to work independently, have a bunch of different TOs, and you're just kind of out in the woods. And what I looked at Overwatch League as was a big opportunity to learn what working in a massive structure would be like. And actually being a cog in the machine and seeing what all that was about, because I'd never done it before. So doing that for 2 years, learning how to function in a corporate space, learning how to function with a bunch of peers, and everything is structured. You're getting a paycheck. It's not, I hope that I don't have to wait 5 months to get paid by this TO. I wonder who that is. It's just, hey, you're getting paid at the end of the month every month, and it was fantastic. So there was a bunch of nice things like that to go off of, and that was pretty much the goal going into it. Was what would it be like to work in a structured environment that's still esports, but that is very structured, and see how that goes. And well, I'm coming back to CS, so I guess that may say something.
Yeah, I think that was where the question was going to go next. You mentioned about the returning to Counter-Strike. Was that always something you wanted to do? Like, did you always want to come back to Counter-Strike at some point?
Yeah, but there was never. I mean, it's not like I stopped following. I did kind of stop, obviously, because I really wanted to focus on Overwatch League when I was working with Overwatch League. But when it wasn't Overwatch League, the only game that I watched was CS. And it wasn't until last year where I went to Malmo and I got to see everybody again, because before that I'd only done Blast Copenhagen, and that was just a surprise thing, and it wasn't really like the real thing. But coming back and seeing everybody live, getting to see the players again, getting to see you guys again, getting to see everything again, and I was just like, okay, it's time for me to come home. That's it's been enough time out in college or whatever, time to move back in with the parents.
Yeah, you went and did your what do they do in school? Exchange program. You went away, you did all that. You checked
6
it out.
months on the road. Got some. It's exactly like that actually, Sponge. That's a really good analogy. Like, because went out, got some corporate experience, got some experience on the job, and now I'm coming back to the university. Just gonna wing it every day and then see how it goes.
Okay, so I think a lot of people can see over the last, since you returned, you've done some casting stuff. Obviously, for the Blast bits and pieces, you're going to be doing the hosting role for that. You with me and Duncan. So we'll try to be nice, me and Duncan. I guess we'll try and make it as fun as possible. But you've done some hosting stuff before. I think you did. It was Blast Copenhagen back in 2017, where we had that podcast that went for some time. Now, like, are you, in terms of your roles, are you trying to be more of a host, trying to be more of you want to go back to casting full time? What's your preferences right now? You just want to be involved in the broadcast?
I'm all over the place, man. I don't really have anything locking me down. So I've actually, like, this year is shaped up to be pretty much perfect in terms of coming back, because I'm going to get all sorts of experience all across the board, real diverse. And that's pretty much what I was hoping for, to come back to CS, because if I was coming back to CS just to cast, which I do love, but only to do that would have been, it's like coming back to CS, but it's too much of a step back. Whereas here, I'm going to get to cast, I'm going to get to host, I'm going to be tied in with the media side of some of these leagues, I'm going to be tied in on the spokesperson role for B-Site. I'm going to have a bunch of different stuff going on in 2020, with time in the middle of the year as well, because of the schedule and how things are looking, to even get to maybe do some other projects as well that I've had on the back burner. So I'll have some time to be here in Stockholm and actually focus on perhaps some of the projects that I've been kind of sitting on. So this year is really shaping up nice, man. It's yes, I want to cast, but it's still the scenario. Well, you kind of want to figure it out. Do you want to be paired up with somebody? Do you want to start a duo? Henry is, out on his own right now. Like, would that be a sick pair to go in and like really try and do something with? But then do we cast all the time? There's all those sorts of questions that need to be asked and answered right now. And so kind of like, I want to cast, but it's more of a experimentation kind of thing right now. See where things go, and just kind of get back into the scene and rub shoulders with everybody again. It's been too damn long.
I kind of missed I came in just after you guys had that period where you guys would rotate through. You'd have different casting pairs. You'd have different people on the desk. I think obviously the host stayed the same, but you were like rotating through a lot more people. And it looked like when that's happening, like it. Obviously, the reason, for people at home who aren't too familiar, the reason we go into pairs and stuff is so you can actually have a quality product and work with that person. But I've noticed, like, with some of these events, when you mix it around and you change things up, it gives people something different to listen to, different takes. Can always be a bit exciting there. But the one thing you said that I think we'll put a pin in and we'll visit it a little bit later is the B-Site spokesperson thing. So I think a lot of people's ears would have pricked up to that. We're not forgetting about that, but we will be diving into some B stuff soon, very soon. Okay, so you're doing the desk, you, me, and Duncan will be there. That should be a good bit of fun. We've got a lot of good teams going on there. But one thing that I know you and I spoke, actually, I'm pretty sure we all spoke about this, because as you came back is when like a lot of the impact of the new economy in CSGO, the buying being a constant thing, the orgs, the Galil price check, all this kind of stuff has kind of been happening.
And I had a great talk about that.
Yeah. So we want to kind of see, well, I think I've just set you up for a negative path there, but let's kind of keep it as a positive path, or you can take it however you want. But coming back to CSGO, how does that kind of, is there anything that you've brought in a different view, or anything that's changed that you don't like or do like, or anything along those lines?
Well, we've kind of covered a lot of this in an interview that I did with Striker on HLTV during the Turkey event that you and I worked, the Star Series one, which was fine. But Striker and I had a good conversation on that because of the ability to work the event for a week and really get back into CS in a deep way, rather than just tuning into a stream here and there. But yeah, the economy, I wasn't set on it. I think I was frustrated with the economy then. Now I'm starting to... it's still kind of the same thing where I feel like the focus is even more on the economy than ever before. And so I was expressing frustration to see players still not necessarily making the best plays when it came to their economy, as in not saving guns properly, or hunting when they shouldn't, or running around with ops and doing the same kind of mistakes. And it was funny, actually. I had a conversation with Kerrigan at that event, kind of just backing up. I was like, hey, man, am I crazy, or is this actually an issue? And he kind of commiserated with me. But we kind of landed on the same point, which was that you still have players now more than ever that their path to pro is through pugging. And it's always been that, but now it's even more, where it's kind of hard to beat the bad habits out of them, and you just need time, because you can tell a player, hey, that's not the right thing to do, but it's going to take a little bit of time for them to understand and fix that. And so perhaps, I think when I came back at the end of last year, I was feeling a bit frustrated, and I was like, I'm not sure. But then we had the break, and I've been able to kind of sit back, and I've gotten to play a lot of CS, and the game plays pretty damn good. So pretty damn well, right? And so now I think I've kind of come back around where I'm like, you know what? I need to actually just sit back and take my time again and come in with a blank slate in 2020. And so Blast is going to be that opportunity where, like you said, you and I and Duncan, Duncan and I are going to be working together on the desk. And I'm excited about that, because I feel like the three of us are going to be able to delve into this pretty deep and actually try and get a grip on where the meta is right now in the game, and if the devs need to be messing with anything again or not. I'm curious to see if the Krieg keeps getting bought, or if the economy is adjusted enough with the Krieg.
Yeah, I think at the stat lines for Leipzig, the SG, the Krieg was still bought like quite a lot. So that's
wasn't that big of a price increase, was it?
No, they've just put it up to 3,000. So we're going to expect to see a lot of that here. Now, I quickly want to move us into our next little segment, because we can keep talking about this stuff you just lovely touched on, gave me a little bit of a segue there into our next point, which we're going to be touching on Blast Premier, which does kick off this Friday. You and I fly there tomorrow. This is where we can get Prof and Striker kind of activated with some questions here. Now, for those people who aren't aware, Prof or Striker, which one are either of you going to the event?
No, because we have three other people in London, so they're basically going to take turns doing like media days and some of the match days. So there's no point for us to go there when we have people right there.
All right. Which one of you is writing the preview viewer guide thing?
Viewer guide, I have no idea, but preview, that's on me for the Group A.
So do you want to talk us through like the format now, up until now, and just a little bits and pieces to give the viewers a bit of an understanding of what to expect?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we have GSL groups, right, to start us off. 3 groups of 4. Obviously, the Group A is coming up this weekend. You guys, as you said, you guys are traveling there. Tomorrow, it's going to start on the 31st, which is what day is that? Friday. It's a 3 days per group, so from Friday to Sunday, it should be every week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
We're gonna have GSL groups, best of 3, all the way through, with the top 2 teams going through to the finals, and the bottom 2 teams are gonna go to this like showdown mechanic where they'll still have a chance to make it to the finals, just with like qualifier teams coming in, basically.
So what the teams that we're currently missing from this league? It's not from the series, the spring series. Obviously, fnatic and mousesports were big omissions, but we've basically got all the other big names in here, right? Prof, do you think not having those 2 names is going to hurt this at all, or the fact that they get an opportunity to compete later down the line if they choose to? Do you think that kind of makes up for all of that?
I mean, it could make up for it, but I'm not sure, obviously, how these qualifiers are going to work. Maybe they even get invited to that showdown thing, which also has like a massive prize pool. I was just checking it out. I think the showdown has like a $650,000 prize pool or something like that.
325.
300? Okay. So, but then
Still.
it's like half for the first half of the season for the spring and then half for the fall, I guess. Because I saw some graphic with like 600,000. So it makes sense that it's like half. So yeah, I guess they'll somehow be in like a part of this if the scheduling works out. I'm not sure like if they have any other obligations in like ESL events maybe or something else going on at the time. But I don't think I think it could be still like a legit tier 1 event when it comes down to the finals. Still, the group stage is just going to be a group stage. Unfortunately, it's not going to be like super high, super exciting, but it's tier 1 CS for the first time in like 2 months. So that's going to draw in a lot of viewers, I feel like.
So, Semmler, for this being like, we had a DreamHack Leipzig and we had some online qualifiers, but this being like the starting point of the year, do you think that this kind of tournament is going to really set the tone and show what the players have been doing? Or do you think we're going to come in here like most years and there's a bit of a couple of teething events and there's a few, like, or do you think they're going to be on the ball in 2020 from the get-go?
I think that we are going to see them try to ease in over the first 3 days. I'm not expecting anything groundbreaking to come through. You're coming out of the holidays. You know, has everybody been practicing? Has everybody been getting their grind on? Some players will have. I believe, you know, like Simple. I don't think Simple sleeps at night. I think he just grinds. But others will probably have taken some time off. And so I think this will probably be that event where it's just the teething process, like you say. Got to get the mothballs off. Figure out how to, you know, scope in again with the Krieg and maybe the AUG if they want to get special, and click heads. So, yeah, that's essentially where I'm at on it. I think everybody is going to be trying to just settle into this meta together after the holiday, and we'll all be learning what the hell is actually going on.
Yeah, well, some teams obviously started a little bit earlier than others because of factors like I was just discussing. Some teams had to play in the Katowice qualifier. Some teams have already opted to play in the DreamHack Open.
Sure.
I actually don't know if any of the Blast teams played in the DreamHack Open.
Probably I don't think that none of them played DreamHack, but you might be on it. No, shoot, who was on the Katowice qualifier? Was it Vitality on the Katowice qualifier?
FaZe was there, definitely.
FaZe was there?
Yeah. But for a lot of these other teams, like NiP, for example, this will be the first time they're playing with nawwk. We're going to talk a little bit more about Group A in a moment. And I also, like, this is me saying something without being actually able to say any more. So I apologize. I hate doing this. But I actually had a call today with some of the guys from Blast, and they were showing me how they're going to do certain like ranking things and asking format questions and this kind of stuff. I think it's stuff they're going to announce before the tournament kicks off. So you should have it in the next, day or 2 days.
Announcement of an announcement.
Yeah, I hate doing this, but I just wanted to make a point here that one of the factors that they showed me for their overall plan is it's very inclusive of the rest of the Counter-Strike calendar. And what I mean by that is I don't mean, they're not hampering anybody else's tournaments. They're not overlapping with anybody or anything like that. What I mean is they're actually looking and going, well, we're running this thing, and the way that they're going to be I'm trying to think how I can say this without giving away too much. The rest of the calendar to some extent matters in their event, which is cool because they're not going, these are the only teams that matter in our series. They're going to be looking at the year as a whole. So if a team like appears from nowhere, there's probably a pretty good opportunity that they could find themselves a way to play within one of these Blast showdown situations, or even get to the finals. This will be rolled out soon. You all learn. I thought it was quite good. I was excited to see that. But we've got the next little subtopic here is how important is Blast in the 2020 schedule. Now, the way that it's shaping up right now, and everybody's focus is on the B site versus ESL, which we're going to cover that stuff later in the show. But as far as I'm concerned, and I don't know where you're at on this one here, Semmler, but it feels like it doesn't look like anybody else besides B-side, ESL, and Blast are running tournaments, right? Like, obviously, we'll probably have a summit here. Maybe Epicenter will pop up with one again. But now they feel like they're the three main forces. And I think that this tournament is going to be pretty important for the year. I don't think it's obviously not a major, but it's still a really good way to be showing high-class Counter-Strike in best-of-3 formats on a regular basis. So what do you take of it?
I actually care more about the leagues than I do about the major these days.
Okay.
When you say that not about the major, I'm like, the major is so long now. It's such a long, drawn-out format. You get teams that get reinvited back. I mean, it seems like Valve are going to be adjusting that in the latter part of the year, right? And we'll see how that all plays out. I think that's actually screwing the tournament organizers with their leagues, that they're actually trying to schedule months in advance, and all of a sudden Valve are saying, hey, now we need to have these tournaments that are going to end up going to be qualifiers, and you guys have to figure this out, and da-da-da-da. I'm actually a little annoyed with the major system right now. I'm not quite sure how I'm digging it. I'm actually more excited about how these leagues play out. I mean, the 3 leagues all have their strengths, at least based off of what we know so far. I mean, Blast seems to be the one that we know the most about. They've actually got a Team Liquid page, or a Liquipedia page, right? But EPL seems to be exciting. At least we know they've invited teams. And I guess the same thing could be said for B-side as well. But it seems to be like this is all about the leagues, and it's almost all about just who is going to find a model that actually works. Because the one who finds the golden goose that lays the eggs that actually pays the bills is going to be the one that actually pulls through in the scene, and it'll be very interesting to see. I think that's more the story of the year than anything.
I think it's kind of cool that we talked about this 2 months ago or 3 months ago in that interview. We talked about this at length. So, like, if you want to hear some more thoughts from Semmler, you can just dive into that after the show.
Yeah, check out the interview with Striker. That was a good one. We covered a lot.
Do you think that, so obviously you're saying here you think that the leagues are more important. Do you think so, at the end of the day, it'll be a situation where we find ourselves in Counter-Strike just has one tournament organizer? Or do you think we're going to stay in a situation, like if we use traditional sports, which I'm not great at either, knowing too much about, but like let's just use the world of fighting, because I like to listen to Joe Rogan podcasts and pretend like I know some things, but they talk about like the fact that there's all these different, like you've got the UFC, you've got Bellator, you've got ONE FC. These are all different companies that are running fights, right, and promotions and all this kind of stuff. And then they're talking about having like cross promotion belts, and they're fighting and all this kind of nonsense going on. Do you think we'll find ourselves in a position where one TO has to reign supreme for everybody to be able to make money, or do you think we can live in a world where B-Site, Blast, and ESL can all do their own thing and we can all share and play and get along?
Well, this is a competition after all, and Striker and I did talk about this in terms of that was another part of what going to Overwatch League was about, was to see how it plays out in a franchise model, because Overwatch were paving the way there, and still are paving the way in terms of how a franchise model could work and how do you do some rev share with the teams and the players, etc. And that still seems to be very much the idea here with these leagues. This is, let's say, you have these leagues that are all hemorrhaging money, and it's the same thing. It's the same story. It's been the same story for a while now. We're all trying to find a franchise model or like a model that actually works and that can monetize and that can be profitable. Because at the end of the day, these are all companies, right? The reason why I liked the Dota and the CS scenes was because you could have more competition there, and so perhaps you'd have more opportunity to find the model that isn't just dump a bunch of VC money into it and hope that we can find something, right? I mean, theoretically, if you actually have companies that are trying to find models that work without truckloads of cash just getting artificially pumped into the system, then through competition, we should find some way, right, to make it work, or it improves our chances, our odds of finding something that works. That's actually kind of why I'm annoyed with the Valve, like butting in with the majors now, because that's just like government subsidy now. That's just like random whatever. Valve, we know you make $1 billion a year, cool. Show up and like, hey guys, we support CS, haha. And they're just like, here, oh sorry, we're screwing with you guys, like like wrecking your events and whatnot. I'm actually like way more interested, not only for the CS that is going to happen in the leagues, but in these tournament organizers to see what it is that they actually come up with for their leagues to monetize. How is it going to play out, and who comes out ahead? I mean, we can talk a little bit about this in the B site afterwards, but also different models. I mean, as far as I know right now from EPL, it doesn't really seem like they're going to be changing much. It seems like it's going to be old hat, same thing. B site seems like we're going to be trying to really push the envelope a bit in terms of content, in terms of a structured plan to actually change how the broadcast works, and that's our approach to one of the approaches, right, to perhaps finding a way to monetize. But I think that's like the overarching story for 2020 is, who's going to find a model and who's going to get closer to finding a model. And obviously they're all in competition with one another and trying to stick seed each other's wheels. Blast less so, obviously, because it looks like they've actually just structured themselves to not overlap with B-Site or EPL, right? So they're kind of just get to be on their own and sit back with the rest of us and watch what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's the curious one here, right? Is because this was a year that felt like it was going to be testing the waters, and we spoke a lot about this last week with Yanko about the new major thing and how that's going to fuck everything up. And now, like, a lot of these orgs aren't even going to have the same opportunity, or if they do, they now have something else they could have to consider, because it's like, well, do we run one of these tournaments? We get 250k to add to the prize pool. There might be prestige. Maybe they run it in the client. There's all these questions, and we don't have any answers. So that one there, we're gonna have to wait and see how that one pans out. Lucas, whack the overtime on this one. We need to discuss Group A. We need to take a little bit of a look here. Group A, Prof, who you got? Obviously the teams, for everybody at home, are FaZe, Liquid, MIBR, and NiP. Going into this with the very limited information, the only teams that we've seen play are MIBR, who were unable to qualify for Katowice, have just recently added Mayan after Pro League, another one of those that they've gone and done last minute, and FaZe. Right, we haven't seen NiP play. They've just added nawwk. Forest has gone to Dignitas, and Liquid, we haven't seen them play either. So, Prof, going into this, what do you think? It's just business as usual here for Liquid?
I mean, it must be Liquid going in first, but I think the question is just about the second team, who's gonna join them and go straight to the global, not the global final, but the spring final, right?
Yep.
So in my eyes, I think FaZe, as we know, started playing from like pretty early since they had the Katowice thing. I think they had a small boot camp for that, then a couple of days off, and then boot camping again, from what we saw last time on the show, obviously with Yanko. So from that point of view, I have some faith in them, and these other teams are kinda on the similar level, watching the last half of the year. And MIBR, we didn't see too much of, and NiP, we have no idea how that's going to look now with Forest leaving and nawwk coming in as a second opper. I mean, it shouldn't be a big change. Seems like just like a player coming into the same role that Forest had, so shouldn't be that big of a difference, but I'm still not sure how the team is going to work out. So just adding all of that together, FaZe seems like the same safe options for advancing from this, right?
Okay, so having FaZe here as like the number two, like just having no information really, that feels like a safe pick. But if we had to look at NiP with nawwk coming in, and the fact that we know that he's going to do the secondary AWPing, like he's going to be a bit more flexible. How do you
something
see
that's
this
going to change, by the way? Surely, like I'm calling this right now. It has to change within a few months. Like they're going to realize this is like he should be a primary AWPing, and it's going to be back to him. Well, not back, but
just quickly, do you want to give a little bit of stock behind that? Like why you think that he should be the primary AWPer? Is it because you don't think Twist is a good primary AWPer, or he's a better primary
That's
AWPer?
First of all, but obviously, like when you get these young stars, into your team, you want to put them in the position where they're comfortable, right? Where they're in their best position. And obviously, secondary AWPing is not that for nawwk, who has been primary AWPing in Gamer Legion and previous teams before that. So like that Twist, also not having faith in Twist is also true for me, to be honest, because we haven't really seen him, take the next step to maybe become a star AWPer for a team. He just hasn't really reached that, and he's been around for quite a long time now. So yeah, that's why I feel like nawwk should just become the primary AWPer from the start, and then you maybe start thinking about Twist, and where he fits into this.
It's even super frustrating because like the Swedish scene has been lacking a good AWPer. Like even in fnatic, they had JW and Twist, and then Twist was kind of AWPing, then JW, then they going back and forth. Then JW kind of picks it up. Now he seems like a good fit for fnatic in the AWPing position. But still, it doesn't feel like the ultimate AWPer for Sweden. It was always like, let's hope for this nawwk kid to be good and come to one of these two teams. And now he comes into one of them, and he's not even AWPing. So it's just like, what the hell is going on?
It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it is a curious one. So NiP probably have some questions to answer here. Obviously, Pitta going out as the coach and threat coming in.
I'll be right back. Give me a second.
No worries. So we get to wait and see how that one's going to go. I was just about to ask Semmler a question, so I guess I'll throw it. I was going to throw him the Brazilian question and say, does he think that this project with Rio coming up, if they can actually make anything of it? Maybe we'll save it for him. He'll be back soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I was just going to say that, like, honestly, sure, FaZe definitely look like, for the same reasons that Prof was saying, FaZe definitely look like the number two here. But with like MIBR and NiP being such question marks, like we have no idea. That's the thing. Like the second spot could literally be any of those three at this point, especially with how FaZe, they haven't really found that consistency. at least so far from what we saw at the end of the year, where they went out in groups at Pro League and went out last. And by the way, losing to NiP, of course, the previous version with Forest, but they lost to NiP at the global final at the end of the year. So they could definitely lose to either of these teams in that group and end up out of the top two, and instead it's going to be one of the other ones.
Yeah, that is a possibility right there. Well, now he's back. We can ask the question
sorry
we're
about
going to
that.
ask. No, that's fine. I was going to give you the hard question. It's mainly because we've talked about this team on the show a lot before, and I want to hear your perspective on this. MIBR coming into this, they've just added Mayan, they've added KNG earlier last year. They're not living up to the hype and the potential of what we expect from the best Brazilian roster, which now I guess they're probably technically not even the best Brazilian roster anyway. Are they still higher than Fury? Anyway, that doesn't matter. That's here nor there. With Rio on the cards as the next major, do you think that this project, they've been boot camping, if you follow their social media, can do it? Can they return to the elite?
I doubt it.
Okay.
If I'm going to be blunt, because I feel like the way that they got to the top was through the hunger of trying to reach the top, right? They had that carrot on the stick of putting it all on the line, no holds barred, everything going into just trying to make it to the top. And then they reached the top and they became dominant, and they had some of the best players on the team, obviously, Cold Zero, etc. Fallen. But then once they got to the top, maintaining that cutting edge, I think is what has it has blunted the weapon that is MIBR. It's worn them down to the point where now I don't know. I don't know if they're just trying to be on life support and just trying to hang in there for as long as they can and keep earning paychecks, or if they are going to just get that reignition that allows them to put everything on the line again, the same way that they did several years ago when they were able to get to the top. So I think that's the main thing. It's Simple just pointed out in an interview recently where it's just will. It's okay, age isn't going to be a factor. You're going to get older, fine, but do you have the will to keep grinding the way that Simple clearly does? Or, the young guns who have rocketed to the top over the time, like Stewie, etc., where they get home from a tournament and they're an hour later, they're already grinding on whatever FPL or ESEA or whatever it is. Do you have that kind of will to maintain, to keep up there? And I wonder if the core of the team still has that or not. That's my main concern with MIBR, is whether or not they still have that ability to grind.
Yeah, it is a decent question, right? Because I think that, like, for them, a lot has changed. Whereas if you look like an Astralis, for example, a lot has changed in the fact that they're now celebrities when they walk around their own country. But in terms of like what they were fighting for, Astralis weren't having to sleep on the kitchen floor of a home, and then the only thing that they were doing was focus on practicing so that they could pull themselves into a better life, right? MIBR, those guys have done that. Fallen has built an absolute empire, and I think that, you could frame it and definitely look at it from the perspective. Like, I think, like,
Fallen's talking to the president.
Jesus Christ,
like, he's got him on the phone, isn't he? Like, isn't there that whole segment where he's talking to him on the phone?
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
But it's just a shame because they built Brazilian Counter-Strike up to such a point, and I don't think that they're done as players. Like Fallen and Fur, they still have moments of brilliance. It'd just be great. Like, I'll own up to this and put my hand up. When I saw KNG joining the team, I was like, I've seen that guy. Like, I've seen him play. I've seen him get excited. I've seen that passion. I'm like, if he comes in and he has that passion, there's no way that can't be contagious for the rest of this team, right? But it hasn't caught on yet. I think we'll probably have a pretty good indication in the first couple of months of this year if things are going to look like they're going to change for this team. But at the moment, MIBR, I don't think anyone's too worried about them. But we're going to get onto the next little topic right now, ladies and gentlemen. It's the B-site update. Now, Semmler, I want to give you an opportunity. You said this before just so you can explain it quite clearly, because there have been some things on the internet recently that haven't been communicated clearly. You said that you're a spokesperson for B-site. Do you want to give us a bit more of an understanding of what that means?
It's essentially what it sounds like, my mate. I mean, I'm going to be moving in. I've been playing catch up essentially since I joined.
Okay.
Because this is obviously not a new project. It's been in the works for a while, and so some guys have been working on it for a long time. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm just trying to catch up with everybody and get up to date with where we are right now, talking to teams and what the format is and how we're looking at the league and getting everything underway. And so my role, once I am caught up, which it's getting there, but once I am caught up on everything and we feel like we've got a good idea of things, I mean, that's going to be my role, is to kind of do shows like this and be a little bit more of a face for the league in the future to try and move forward with that role, right? That's one of the new roles that I was going to be picking up in 2020, which was to have this kind of approach to things instead of just being a caster, right?
So the spokesperson role, is that something similar to like what Pocket was for MLG? If people remember that major, he was like in every Reddit thread about the things in every.
But that's
tweet.
Just because MLG know how to hustle, dude, and he is like Adam's protege, you know.
But is that similar to what your role is going to be? Because like between like PR and having like it's just like a bit more details of like what is your day to day going to be like.
Yeah, it's basically I just want to go out there and talk about Counter-Strike. Now that I'm home, I pretty much just want to go out there and talk about Counter-Strike. So it's going to be more attending events, perhaps attending events that aren't necessarily endemic to Counter-Strike, but that may be endemic to esports. We're not quite sure. We haven't quite gotten that far yet, but it may be that I do go to some events to just talk about the league, talk about Counter-Strike, figure out what we can do going forward to progress the scene and figure things out like that, perhaps. Maybe have a little bit more of a forward approach on that side of things. It seems like that's going to be one of the parts of my role going forward in 2020. And so like the Reddit stuff, it seems like Duncan, every time I click a Reddit thread, Duncan's already answering in there. He's already got a comment going. So I'm like, it seems like Duncan, that's very much his turf. And I have been, I do keep more of an eye on Reddit now and on Twitter than I have in the previous couple of years. But that's not to say that I'm going to be responding to all sorts of different comments in there or not. I think I'm going to be much more hands-off on that side of things.
Yeah, I'm much happier that I'm more hands-off. It's so much nicer. Anyway, before I start to talk about
God, I need to give you a hug.
I think it would be fair to kind of like at least summarize what we know and what we think we know about the league, right? Because I think a lot of people who are watching or even like who will watch at some point are still not entirely sure what this league is about, right? So like let's just put together like the main facts that have been either reported on or actually officially revealed, which is obviously kind of scarce because everything that we've heard officially has basically come out of Thorn's mouth and nobody else's. Okay, Dan Fiden was a
there was Dan part Fiden. Of it too. Keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. I mean, I compiled like all of the facts that those two actually said on record just to make sure that everything that what's actually official, right? And it's still not much, even though there's like maybe like 4 hours of content around it from those two. But just generally, sorry.
Hit me.
Just generally, I'm just going to summarize the facts that we've heard, right? Which is that the league will start March, run on the same dates as EPL, so they're mutually exclusive. That's the gist of it. 12 teams, of which 10 are meant to be franchised and 2 coming from an open qualifier. Running a total of 12 weeks next year, so supposedly 6 weeks each season. Mm-hmm. Only 6 of those 10 teams have officially been signed so far. And even though their identity hasn't been made official, the reports have said Cloud9, MIBR, which are the 2 organizations who are reportedly being behind the creation of the league, and then Mad Lions, Gen G, Dignitas, and Contact, which is the former Crazy team. If you haven't really, sorry.
Yeah, former Crazy lineup.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just to summarize for people what this is about, right? But I mean, the main question for sure is, and even from what you're saying now, obviously at this point, there's been so little official information, and we're about a week from launch or a month from launch. Sorry. Mm-hmm. So yeah, can you just say what's kind of been holding up like more information outside of just obviously trying to log down the teams that are actually going to participate?
Well, that's a big problem, or that's a big part of it. And that's esports as well, and that's Counter-Strike esports. That's the freelance esports sort of thing, where the teams are also negotiating between both of the leagues. Some of them are still bouncing back and forth as to which one they want to actually align with for the year. And so that's slowed some things down, obviously, because you're making plans thinking, okay, it's these teams on board, and then all of a sudden you find out 24 hours later, wait, no, it's going the other way, and then it's back and forth in terms of where the teams are actually going to be. And so right now, that's one of the main things that we're focusing on as far as the league is concerned is what is going to be the structure with the teams going through 2020. And a big reason for that as well is because, I mean, Dan Fiden talked about this as well in his interview that he did, which is that I think that got quite a bit of movement as well in terms of how CSGO teams aren't necessarily making a profit off of CSGO. In fact, they're losing quite a bit of money. And that he challenged any of the top tier, CSGO teams to come out and say otherwise. None of them did, because that's kind of the case right now. And it's kind of the same.
While you're on this topic, just one team that has been saying or has insinuated they're making money as Astralis, and I'm just gonna say they haven't really come out and said that or perpetuated that. So I think that's interesting. I'm just gonna say that.
Wasn't there a team that just went public recently? You know, I mean,
yeah, exactly.
There was something, I don't know, something like that. Going public, share prices, and needing to make some scratch. I think there was. I'm not 100%. But
yeah,
maybe
I'm just saying that's interesting, just kind of relevant to the discussion, right?
Yeah, no, but it's relevant to all of our discussions right now across esports, I think, and it's still the same kind of thing. As far as all the different leagues are concerned and all the different games are concerned, is that it's the same hunt everywhere. All of the the franchise leagues, Overwatch League, Riot, right? Unless you're obviously Riot is a bit different because they're directly subsidized, and Overwatch League to an extent, not quite. Depending on how involved the developers are, but as far as Astralis are concerned, they're going to say whatever they can, but I'd be surprised if they were profitable as well, even with their support. Regardless, that's besides the point. Right now, what the point is that if we are going to move forward with esports, we need to find a model that actually works where the teams can make money. And that's one of the core parts of the league that we're trying to focus on right now is how, yes, okay, there's a buy-in, which really, if you take a span of years, right, which is what these teams are looking at, 4 to 5 years is essentially what it boils down to. It's like a $2 million buyout. A lot of noise has been made about that buy-in, right, to be a part of the franchise side. But if you actually just spread it out over 5 years, in terms of running cost for what it costs to actually run a CS team, the cost isn't that much. Whereas if the team is part of the franchise and is in the league as part of the ownership of the league, then they do stand to actually perhaps make money if like rights or sponsorships, rights, rev share, but not only the teams, the players as well, which is one of the big things that that has been looked at in this league is player rev share. And how to make it so that the players, like in sports, are getting a part of the rev share as well. It's not just at the behest of the teams that the players, if the owners feel that they should get a part of the rev share, they can get a little bit of cut of the pie. It's actually baked into the cake that the rev share goes all the way down from the league to the teams to the players. Everybody's in and everybody's getting a part of the money. And that's what one of the models that we want to try to really push and experiment with is is this model workable and will it actually make money? And it seems like perhaps all in it could in the long term, which is obviously why we're doing it.
So I'm just curious here because I don't participate in any of these like business type discussions when it's to do with like rev share and this kind of like that stuff isn't, first of all, it's not stuff I have any knowledge about whatsoever. Second of all, it's not something which I actually have a huge interest in. Because it doesn't affect me directly at the moment anyway.
How selfish of you.
Yeah, well, that's the way I operate, right? Like I look at a lot of this stuff going on and I think, how does this stuff affect me? And then obviously the greater, how does this affect Counter-Strike? But I don't know, maybe Strike and maybe Prof can do this when we get to the ESL point. But with the B side, so the way we're talking about making money here, is this about through revenue shares of the broadcast? Like what are we
in terms of like, I'm not exactly spot on in terms of the exact system and way it breaks down though, but I guess the core that you can take away from it is that the teams buy in, and so when they buy in, they by necessity own a portion of the league. And so when it comes to revenue for the league, the teams will, instead of it having to go to the TO first and the TO takes a big chunk because they're running it at no cost to the teams, because the teams have bought in, they're going to get a bigger part of the pie. That gets divvied up, and it also gets divvied up amongst the players which are represented in the league. And so that's the idea is whatever comes in, which is, yeah, I mean, that's a big advantage to having leagues. And that's why, it's like we've had these debacles for years now, right? Are they streaming on Facebook? Or is it YouTube? Is it Twitch? All of those are forms of revenue. Excuse me, sorry, it's all the mineral water. But all those are forms of revenue, right? That the TOs count on and tournament organizers count on to make money in that case. So those are paid. That's a stream of revenue, right? And so all these TOs, that's what they're working with. And it seems like if the teams are directly plugged into that, that's where you can start actually there can be a solid stream of revenue for the teams, and that's what it's about.
Okay.
So instead of it's more the teams plugging directly into the font instead of having to go through a buffer, which is a tournament organizer.
Okay, so yeah, go for it, Striker.
Oh, it wasn't me.
I'm not
Oh,
striker,
Prof.
but
Go for it,
thanks.
Prof.
No, I think just like for viewers, it's kind of easily explained. It's just like the TO is the teams in the B side. That is kind of the thing. I mean, the TO and the organizational, the teams that are in the league, that made the league, are going to be kind of the TO. So that's the part that's not going to be shared as much. So there is less to be shared around, or more to be shared between like less parties, I feel like. But at the same time...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
At the same time, with this buy-in, which is 2 million, it's still a massive investment from the side of the teams, though. Like, they are investing at the start, and then they need to make that money back. So where is that going to come from? It feels like the B side would need to make like 3 times or 5 times more money than ESL is making now to make that back. So it's still like a huge gap to be bridged. And in what way can this league get that amount of money, which like ESL can't? That is kind of, from the outside looking in, is kind of, for me, unclear. Where's the leverage to bring in so much more sponsorship to make this money back, right?
This is where it gets tricky because, again, do we have access to the books? Do we know exactly what the teams are spending on a yearly basis anyways? What's their operating budget when it comes to running a CSGO team? I mean, if we go off of what Dan Fiden was saying, somewhere between $1.5 to $2 million a year. So a year. So it's like, what's 2 million across 5? Drop in the bucket, right, when it comes to the overall cost for a team. But what's the payoff? What's the potential payoff? As you pointed out, much more succinctly than I did. Maybe you should get this job. But it's just, it is in terms of you're getting rid of the middleman. If the teams are responsible for the league and they just hire somebody, right, to handle running the league, which is essentially what ECS, what Face It, ECS is shut down. Face It, they don't even really own a percentage of the team. I think it's like 0.5%. Duncan actually did a video on this earlier, which was very good, and definitely go and check that out. But it's like everybody's so concerned about how this is supposed to be the ECS version whatever 10. No, it's this organization, this new company that has come in, that's made up of the teams and other bodies, as well as Face It being hired. They've hired Face It essentially to run the tournament for them. And so when it comes to like the overall cost, of like buying into the league plus running your team, if you spread it out over time, it actually makes sense for the bigger teams to play in this league and to be a part of this league, because they stand to gain more off of it. They have the money. If they're operating a tier 1 team right now in CS:GO, 2 million isn't going to be, compared to what they're putting in already, it's not a huge ask, or it shouldn't be.
I think as well, if you look at North American business compared to European business, the one thing that the North Americans seem to be able to do from an organizational standpoint is sign these non-endemic sponsors, which either Europe doesn't get close to. I know that definitely TOs of Counter-Strike don't get close to, whereas the orgs seem to already have an in there. So if like these guys are able to bring any of their sponsorship contacts across to that league, they could be bringing in untapped money that we haven't even been able to look at before, potentially. I think that's something to maybe consider right there. But I had a question, and I don't know if it's all finished, like the format and everything. I've seen Duncan saying things that there will be qualifiers for this. But just quickly before we talk about those qualifiers, assuming these other 6 teams who have already signed on, if I'm reading the tweets and stuff correctly, there's no relegation, right? Those 6 teams, if they're buying in for 2 million, they're not going to be able to be relegated. They're part of the league. Like,
they're part of the league. That's that's how a franchise works.
But if you qualify and you get in, can you get relegated?
And there you qualify, you get in, but you get a paid ride. Because that was actually one of the core questions that I was asking when I was even starting to talk with these guys, where I was like, listen, I'm not going to be a part of anything that would make it so that the endemic brands, the smaller endemic brands that are growing, like ENCE, for example, that have made huge headlong leaps over the past couple of years in terms of growing as a brand, we're not closing the door on them. And right from the start, they were like, no, that's the whole point of having this qualifying system. You have the 10 teams that buy in, and then you will have 2 slots where the teams can qualify in, and it's the rest of the teams that have bought the franchise that actually cover the cost of those other 2 teams to have them compete. And so it offers a golden opportunity for teams to actually compete. And the best of the best, right? The best of the teams that did not buy into the franchise, they get a chance to come in, and then they get the same ride and the same treatment as all the other teams that are actual franchise owners. And then they just keep going with it. If you keep competing, you keep crushing, you can actually hold on to that spot. So it's that is actually one of the big things about it, which is that it offers an opportunity to smaller orgs and smaller players, right? Like this whole fiasco that we've just had right now in terms of things changing up and some of the tier 2, tier 3 teams really not getting a chance, well, that's one of the strong suits of this league is that they get that golden opportunity to actually qualify in and then benefit.
Okay, Striker or Prof, do you have any questions?
I have like just to touch on this like grassroots element, which like having a qualifier for 2 teams is fine, but at the same time, just like presenting that as better than what ESL is doing in terms of even with this, what just happened with like cutting half of the teams, ESL still has like a 10 times better grassroots system, like overall. They still have qualifiers in terms of like MDL. Non-member teams can still play, like teams like Godsend seem to be in the Pro League. So I just want to point out that even though this is like a good thing, Blast also has it now with some like teams coming through qualifiers, which was a big issue for them last year, at the beginning of the year at least. I think it's like a good thing, but it's not like it's overstepping on ESL's turf in any way. I still think they are the best in terms of having all of these like local, like regional competitions, and then all the way up to MDL and then Pro League, which is like still a super cool thing.
I mean, sure, but I mean, is that taking into account that the fact that you have teams that have worked for 6 months to try and qualify and get their big break, and they've literally just had the door closed on them without even any consideration on the side of ESL, because ESL are so focused on locking down the top teams? You know, there's a difference there.
Yeah, but I think there's a difference between like using that to make B-side look better and actually
You're
just
absolutely
like
right. You're
using
absolutely
that.
right. You're absolutely right.
Like
that's not something that I mean, there's still the opportunity for ESL to put on, you know, this bigger tournament, as you say, right? I mean, they've cut down on the number of actual teams competing in the tournament overall, but they're still it's not a knock on ESL, and it's an unfortunate how it played out, but both tournament organizers have their own opportunity to actually provide ways to get into the league and actually compete in the league. So that's a positive, and it's pretty much what I'd rather focus on, because we could fling shit all day.
Yeah, I think that it's like a curious, because obviously we've got a point in the show for the ESL drama a little bit later where we will talk about these things, because a lot of teams who probably banked on playing in that league, we'll get into it later, found out very quickly they weren't in that league anymore. So that has flow-on effects there. I wanted to ask a question. This one here, right? Like, I'm like a doomsday prepper. Like downstairs right now, I think we have like, I don't know, 40 bottles of 2-liter water just in case the fucking.
Hey, you're smart.
You know, you got to be ready for this shit. So I want to present to you like a doomsday kind of situation for B-side. Let's live in a world. Let's all transport ourselves. Let's go live in a world where ESL get all the teams that they said that they invited, right? Let's go live in that world for a second. And then all the teams who are currently rumored, there's 6 names rumored with the B-side league. They're your stable, and then you get 6 other teams to make up the numbers. And you know, you're talking about having a couple of teams scattered within the top 30. Maybe 5 or 6 teams scattered within the top 30, and then a couple guys with an outsider's like kind of punter's chance. Do you think that B-side as a project fails if you can't get any of these like top teams, or do you guys still see like, okay, we don't get the top teams for season 1, but we know there's clauses here, maybe, you know, we can get better teams as we go?
We will get better teams as we go, and we'll put on a better show. That's kind of the whole thing. Monty's involved, Duncan's involved. Some of the best content creators across multiple games are involved in this league to change up on the show. And it's not a question of like 6 months. Oh, this one season it all fails. This is a plan for years to come. And so you have to think long game here, and how do we progressively move forward with the long game. It's a 5-year plan that we've got here, and so. The other factor is, I mean, do you want to put all your eggs in one basket, or do you want to focus on the fact that there are other players out there who have budget and who could potentially even just buy rosters?
Yeah, I think that's one of the factors here which could be very exciting for this league with it. Because for those people who aren't aware, there's obviously, I don't know the clause exactly. Was this leaked? I'm not exactly certain on this, Striker. You're my fact checker.
Sorry. Yeah.
To do with, there was something leaked about something about finding teams.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, that's already been even like officially commented on, that they have this. Well, it's Semmler, I guess you can explain it.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you can. All right, so that kind of comes down to like the spots and keeping teams competitive. I mean, it's not like you are locked into the spot. If you perform poorly enough, you can't even be like forced to sell your spot, or you could be prompted to sell your spot in the franchise. But one way to keep teams motivated so that you're not just getting kicked willy nilly is, listen, you're still a part of the franchise, but if you're outside of a certain limit in terms of performance, because we obviously want to encourage teams in the league to be the best that they can possibly be. Given the advantages and given the resources they have, I mean, there is a fine system that could be potentially used to encourage them to improve, whether that's making roster changes or making changes, whatever, to perform better. That is possible. So it is in a way incentivizing teams to find the best rosters.
Yeah, we were having a conversation about this the other day, Striker and Prof, and we were talking about whether or not that's going to be possible. And then I think this could be tied into what we were talking with, who were we talking this about? I think it was Yanko, about like having certain trade windows and stuff. Because I think like right now with the climate, unless you're just going to come in and like slap a shitload of cash out on the table, it's very difficult to buy teams. We even see like Na'Vi struggling just to buy players, right? So I think that it's really intriguing that the angle here is give the show something brand new, because I think that's something that we have been lacking. Is go on, put on as much Counter-Strike as we can, and then go home. And then that's not, unless the viewer is tuning in just to watch their favorite team every time, you're not giving which certain players only show up for that. But I think like as an entertainment product, Counter-Strike has been lacking as a whole of bringing people in for more than just the games. And that's something that, look, this could be a symptom of the fact we've grown too quickly for where we should actually be at. Have we grown too quick for our actual worth? But that's, I guess, a different topic. I have a question. This is for the group. I don't really mind where we go with this one. But do we think leagues as models in Counter-Strike work anyway? And the reason I ask this is because Overwatch is just the Overwatch League, right? Just the league. That's the only tournament. But obviously, there's probably some smaller shit. But the only thing that matters is Overwatch League. League of Legends, they've got their own shit going on. They just run their own league. Call of Duty, they just run their own league. Counter-Strike, if you're going to run a league and you want it to be profitable, the problem is it's not going to be the biggest thing in Counter-Strike. So do we think that anybody who's running a league can make a league work?
I'm kind of like in agreement. I'm pretty sure that you were kind of basing this on Peter's tweet that was quite similarly worded. And I kind of agree with that it's kind of hard to make them work when you always have. Yeah. Well, he basically said whatever you're insinuating now, right? That leagues are actually not the biggest thing. They're never going to work if they're the biggest thing. If not, they're not the biggest thing, rather. In CS, and we have the majors, we have plenty of other tournaments like Cologne that's always going to be more prestigious than an ESL Pro League or than like this group stage or Blast Pro Series or Blast Premier rather. And so like from that perspective, I kind of agree with that. I don't think leagues will ever be, unless we get rid of these other entities like the majors, like the Colognes or Katowices or whatever. Like that's never going to happen, right? So I'm agree at this point in time.
From my point of view, like the reason why, just like for example, why it doesn't work and why these leagues also won't be super exciting or important, and I think like just wasting so much money is kind of just wasting money, is the league starts on March 1st and it ends on April 1st. It's 1 month. What are the storylines that can develop in 1 month? Why does it matter if MIBR loses all of their matches in a month, when a month after that, like in 15th of April, they're going to be playing like Blast, I don't know, spring finals or something like that, or they're going to be playing Cologne a week after that or whatever. Like
there's the major in May, right?
There's the major, yeah, right. So everyone's going to be like, okay, they played this league, it didn't go well. It's going to be like some sort of an indicator for the major, but it's just going to be a warm up for the major. Like it's just going to be that the major is too important for this league to have that big of a storyline that we're going to all get excited about. It doesn't matter about like the production quality or anything else. That's my feeling.
This is something we've talked about for a long time, and we've seen it since the beginning as well. I mean, it used to be that leagues were the main bread and butter, and they are still the main bread and butter. Don't get them wrong. They are the main bread and butter, big earners, or only earners in some cases, for these TOs. But back in the day when it was all played online, and you didn't have all the costs involved in flying players out, renting studios, renting PCs, all of the costs that come with running a LAN now have been stacked onto the league. along with, you got to get flights for the players, and you got to, okay, so what I'm saying is there are many costs that didn't used to actually be tied to leagues that have now been added onto it. But it used to be that leagues, it was just online, and then you were flying Anders and me out to ESL and to Cologne, and the cost was put us in a hotel, and then we come into the studio, which you already own because it's your business, it's your office, and then we just cast the games from there. But everybody, it's like when they figured that out, hold on, we can actually have very low cost ways of putting on long productions that just generate viewer hours, get eyeballs on there for hours at a time over a span of months. That's the ticket, right? Because at the end of the day, the sponsors, and this applies to the teams as well. And this is where, before you had these big leagues that were going down, this is why it was so important for teams that their teams did well in tournaments, because that meant that they were on screen longer, and that gave their sponsors more screen time. And so you could say, oh, your logo showed up on the stream X amount of times, right? Well, think about it with a league perspective. It's like, oh, your logo gets seen X amount of times over hours and hours and hours and hours, and you can even have it just there. So leagues are where it's at. That's pretty much it. As far as what actually makes it, because again, man, and I don't even know all the specifics in terms of like how much it actually costs to run some of these stadium events, but the cost, we do know that it costs
just
an enormous
the
amount of
rent
money.
Is massive, right? Because
It's
these
an
are like
enormous
20,000
amount of money to rent out
capacity.
Lanxess for the amount of time that they need to rent out Lanxess, for example. Like the Cathedral of Counter-Strike, it still costs a whole lot of money, and when you're selling tickets for like 25-50 euros, when you're having to like rent out this place for a week, I mean, it's not rentable. That's not what's making the money. What's propping the whole thing up are the leagues, and that's where the money is actually made right now. And that's why there's so much focus on, okay, this is something that we can build on. How do we make it so that this becomes like the front runner and really carries us across the finish line?
What I kind of like about this in general, at least I can speak about the ESL Pro League, which has already been announced that it was going to have like round-robin groups into the finals or into playoffs, which are already going to be the finals, basically. Like the top 6 teams are going to be at an arena, basically. And like top 8 teams actually make it to the playoffs. So like from the quarterfinals on, you get an arena, right? We've gotten rid of this like almost pointless group stage of the finals or whatever, or like the pointless online stage. Where instead, basically, like what's happening now is we get the group stage, which is like now the regular season, leading right into the arena days, right? Instead of like having that middle thing in between where there are group stages of ESL Pro League finals, there are still like outside of an arena and then outside of like almost on top of the regular season.
Yeah, you're talking about this based on the Lanxess agreement, or is
no,
this
is official.
It's official. Okay.
No, the fact that the ESL Pro League is going to be 4 groups of 6. Round robin, best of 3. The first team goes to like I think quarterfinals and then or something like that, just to the later stage in the playoffs, and then second and third team from every group goes to like a previous stage of the playoffs, and then the top 6 teams of the playoffs are going to be in an arena. So there's not this group stage of ESL Pro League finals that was basically just to get rid of like another 12 teams, right?
Yeah, I mean that's cool, but just going back to the point of the leagues versus like the big events, in terms of, I agree with like, not that I agree, I don't have the numbers, but I understand why these arena events would be a lot less profitable or generate more loss than leagues, at least.
I'm going to say, quickly here, you can keep going with your point, but I just want to...
I'm going to let you finish.
You can keep going on with your point, but I won't let you do it right now.
From my understanding, the leagues that I am aware of, have worked with, they're not big earners. Now look, this is just my thoughts, but go back to your point, Prof. I don't think now with all the expenses you spoke about, Semmler, that the leagues are the ones making them any money anymore. I think now it's just another hole in the boat.
Yeah,
but it should be a smaller hole.
Yeah, it's a smaller hole.
We'll
put it that way. It's a smaller hole, and shoot, I gotta let Professor. We cut it.
I'll just say that it doesn't matter. Like if it is earning a bit money or losing less money, overall the viewership is not gonna be there for the whole like league season. In comparison to a Cologne, it's just not going to be anywhere near that because of the interest of the viewer is not going to be there because it's not that interesting. And then until we either downgrade these big events or have less of them, the majors, the Colognes, a couple of other like Pro League final is a big event, but in comparison to the league, at least it was like super 10 times more viewed probably in on average. So either we have to like downgrade these big events for people to just move to the leagues, or like nothing's gonna change, I feel like, because just the pure numbers in terms of viewership is not gonna add up. It doesn't matter if we have more hours in total, right? Because you multiply the viewing hours.
So minutes watched and metrics like that are huge. That's why they like run league stuff, right? That's a big reason is why these TOs want to run leagues, because it can be so much extra generated content that they can be selling minutes watched on, or that. And I know what you're saying. You're not hitting a viewership concurrent the same way, but let's say that you had a broadcast that went for like 12 days straight and you were able to maintain 50k viewers every single day for 12 days straight, versus a weekend tournament where you run 8 hours of content 2 or 3 days and you get 150k. Like, you have to think like, I don't know how all the sales shit goes down. That's something I wish I knew more about. But like, in terms of that kind of stuff, minutes watched is a pretty huge metric. So the way that we're looking at it, in the terms of, we know as many viewers don't tune in for regular season matches and there isn't the same amount of hype and shit around it. That's true but in terms of what they can do with those numbers, they can still make those numbers work, right? I want to quickly here, if we can, pivot back to more B-site focused stuff while the time is counting down the last couple of minutes. So Semmler, is there anything like with the B-site stuff that we haven't touched on here that you think is a touchy point that we should talk about?
What's holding up the naming, by the way? I'm just gonna ask that, because obviously like that's something that should have been like figured out like months ago when this has been in the
Would be pretty hilarious if it's just like B-side but without quotation marks.
Just be patient, lads. Be patient. It's worth the wait.
I'm just surprised that this is the thing that hasn't even like come.
I mean, I think they obviously want to unveil it like in some grand fashion, with all of the mainstream media picking it up, and the Polygons and the Kotakus and all of these guys. So they want to push all of that together with the teams, and until they have the teams, and obviously depending on the teams, they're gonna pitch it a bit differently. So yeah, I guess that all kind of has to come together.
Okay, because like
and I'm becoming the B-side spokesperson number 2.
Okay, hold up. So we spoke a little bit about talent. Well, we didn't speak about the talent, but you mentioned some names and that it was going to be very content driven and like different broadcasts. We touched on that. We did a worst case scenario kind of thing. So we don't know where the teams have landed at the moment. That's not public information. Format. Did we know anything about the format here? Have we touched on that?
We're not rock solid on the format. We're pretty much there. One thing I can reveal is that it is not going to be just the humdrum round robin format. It is going to be double elim, and it's going to be brutal. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's put it that way for the format. That's the tough part. I can't quite reveal it because it's going to be very soon. And Professor wasn't wrong. We are planning to release a lot of this information. Again, don't want to put too much time on it, but it's going to be soon. But yeah, it's the format's brutal. We'll put it that way, and it's going to be very entertaining.
Okay, so in terms of like for general Counter-Strike viewers at home, I'm trying to put myself in their shoes here. It's going to be based out of LA, so I assume it's going to be on that kind of a time zone. That would make the most sense. Okay.
I mean, we have like 1,000 people here in chat and no one is asking anything. Now that they have their opportunity, and of course later, when we're in the middle of discussion, it's like 1,000 questions.
I mean, yeah. I've seen questions like, what teams are going to be in this B site? Like we literally touched on that like at the beginning of this conversation.
Everybody's got this, it's like soon TM, and that's one of the things that we've got going right now. It is soon TM in a couple of these, but right. Like what I can kind of share is that we are planning on having a start with North America, but then to shift over into Europe and try and have it so that it's split between the two, so that we can actually have some European presence and a North American presence, and fans everywhere can actually have something to travel to and be a part of.
Not just for the finals, which has been kind of like reported early on.
Pardon me?
Not just for the finals, because that's been kind of reported early on that it was going to like try and go back, like the actual finals of the league were going to alternate between Europe and North America, like for each season. So it's going to be even for like the regular part of it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yes, that's the idea is that's a goal to work towards.
Okay.
So there was a question about like who owns the spot when a team qualifies. I think, I guess that is dependent on how the team does in the league. But if they would like remain in the league, is it? I think that's too in detail. I think a good question is: are there any roster lock rules in place? Do you have stuff about that? Maybe
That I'm not sure about. That I can't speak on just yet. That's where we start getting into the nitty gritty, and I'm not quite sure on that point just yet.
Another question: why don't you have a nice agreement with CSPPA being tweeted out? How you're also great and have like great relationships. What is going on there? Why do you hate the players? I think that's the question.
Oh man, Chad, you want to answer that?
Look, we hate the players, guys. We hate them for lots of reasons. I'm not even.
Well, I mean, this has actually been kind of commented on by Dan Fiden and Thorin in one of those binary numbers episodes, which was that there's a deal being made with CSPPA because like some details of the league haven't been like finalized yet.
Yeah, one thing that I can say as far as the CSPPA is concerned, it's been done for roughly, I don't know, I want to say a month now. It's been done, but because of the legal issue, because the CSPPA are trying to back the players. They are trying to push the level for the players. But when you start getting into these organizations, then it turns out, have to actually start worrying about laws. And you have to actually start worrying about how things break in certain governments and how things work. And it turns out that stuff is really complicated and can get really complicated. And so what's essentially going on is the due diligence, the proper going step by step to make sure that, yes, okay, we are setting up a proper entity, a professional entity, and that we want to be a big deal. And obviously you guys are doing the same. Well, now we have to play ball, and we actually have to go through the due diligence and actually make sure that everything step by step makes sense and is proper. And so that's a process that we've been going through with the CSPPA, and that, you know, we should have an announcement for soon. I can't talk on it just yet, but it's not like we've, you know, like the CSPPA is only going to be working with one league. The CSPPA want to work with everybody, and we want to work with the CSPPA, and we are pretty much there.
Plus, you need to get the name out first before you can be releasing any of those fucking documents. So that's an important one to do there. Now, Semmler, I was told that you're only going to be with us for an hour. But if you want to stay around for the whole show, you're more than welcome. We're not kicking you out. You know, you're not overstaying. You're welcome. If you want to hang around, we might move the order of things around. So do you want to hang around, or do you want to head out?
What's the order?
Well, we would have pushed EPL for now, right? Like, so instead of the SPUNJ versus Twitch chat.
Yeah, we would do the EPL drama now, obviously, because that would be fun. And then we'll move the Twitch chat until later in the show. So if you want to hang around for the EPL drama before we move to me versus the Twitch chat, which is going to fucking suck. I'm going to lose so bad.
Hey, dude, I can give you some pointers on that. I don't know if you know the Good Studio, Semmler versus the chat. That was a real thing.
Yeah.
We did it way back before it was popular. Well, let me see. Hold on.
I hate it. I hate fucking Twitch chat. Anyway, Martin doesn't like it when I get mad at Twitch chat. All right.
As far as the EPL drama is concerned, I think it's better that I duck right now. I don't really have much to add. I mean, I think we touched on the key or the important parts already throughout this talk. And really, I think the main thing is that I think we're going to be putting out a product that is going to speak for itself, and we're going to crush. So whatever happens. But it's a shame that things aren't exactly going smooth, you know, for them either. So we'll see how it goes. I'll stay tuned in the stream, and I'll hear what you guys have to say.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, thank you for joining us. That's a little bit of an insight on all things Semmler, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to see him in 2 days' time. I'm going to see him tomorrow. Maybe we're
going to see me tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah. But we're going to keep the show moving. Thank you for joining us. We're going to get going straight into the SPUNJ versus Twitch chat. So let's keep this one moving.
Thanks, guys.
Hang up and leave.
Yeah, no, it's like, can I talk? Can I not talk?
Put on your clothes and get the fuck out.
All right. I don't think we've ever removed a guest from the show halfway through before. But there was a little bit of bits and pieces going on there as Semmler was leaving. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we're still here. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my least favorite part of the show that we have to do is one of the people on the show versus Twitch chat. And today, I didn't even get a choice. It's going to be me.
Your least favorite?
My least favorite. This is my least favorite segment of the whole show.
You always prop it up as the best thing that's ever happening here. So what's going on this time?
I guess I woke up to myself. I finally realized I have to go back to work tomorrow, and I'm like, fuck. Anyway, school holidays are over, guys. Can't wake up and eat cereal and sit on the couch and watch cartoons all day anymore. Let's get this going. I need to find the fucking link. Lucas, where's the link?
I have it.
All right, Twitch chat. Beating everybody. You're gonna beat me. You're gonna frustrate me less than my last two Face-It games today. I'll read it. You guys can chip in with you.
Maybe
read it,
read it, but with a dumb voice, and then answer with your normal voice.
All right. Fuck it. Let's do it. I'm ready whenever you are. Fix the service.
I have to fix the server that gets the Twitch chat.
Oh, okay. I was like, fucking hell. Okay, Twitch is still okay. We're fixing it so that they can actually vote. Otherwise, I would have won. Anyway.
Or maybe you can just rig it anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe I've already been given all the answers and I'm going to get 100% right. It's not true. I'm not going to get 100% right. I'll be lucky to get one right. I had a thought, and I'm going to air this right now, and we can probably clip it and use it.
Okay.
While Lucas is fixing stuff before we get into the quiz. So a lot of people tweet about like 128 tick servers and like a better algorithm for matchmaking and this and that and having the same rules and all. 1 second, Lucas. I got to finish this rant. Now, has anyone ever... SPUNJ is the #1 narcissist. It's true. Has anyone ever considered this, right? Has anyone ever considered this? Counter-Strike as a game was built as a modification. It wasn't even the property of the fucking developer. It was a guy who just fucking made a game based off of Half-Life.
Yep.
Now, as Counter-Strike has grown and changed over the years, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of the most popular features have been modifications of the game. A lot of the game modes have been mods, have been things that people have built. A lot of the ways to play the game have been things that have been community built. The maps, the different tournaments, it's all been community driven. Now, people get all up in arms and go, Valve aren't doing a very good job of the matchmaking. But has anyone ever considered that in a way of Valve going, hey, the community has done such a fantastic job of getting Counter-Strike to this point of being loved and played by so many people, that maybe by allowing the Facets of the world, the ESEAs of the world, all that kind of shit to exist, that it's like them, being symbiotic with the community that has gotten them to this point by modifications and giving back. And now there's a business model built off of their game that is outside of that, so we can share the wealth. Because guess what, guys? Valve doesn't need any more fucking money.
This is actually something that I'm kind of hoping is going to change a little bit. And I feel like we've seen that a little bit now in terms of like what Valve can do in order to help this system, right? They're obviously helping with the 250K, the added prize money to these like major ranking tournaments. So I'm hoping like this is going to go further and they're going to start like helping out with like, adding these tournaments into the game and stuff like that, like a little bit more. So yeah, I'm just hoping that they eventually will get to a point where Valve are a little bit more symbiotic with the tournament organizers, helping them with the costs and like helping with things like, tournament related skins and whatever like that. Anything in the game that can actually help the organizers, right? Outside of just the majors, which have the stickers at least.
All right, guys. Sorry for our little diversion, but we're off that now. We're going to get back to me versus Twitch chat. You ready, Lucas? All right, question 1. I'm going to read this as somebody in Twitch chat. Which player did not attend every IEM Sydney event? Was it A, Dexter, B, Malta, or C, Tux? Do you guys like that voice? That's probably one of my better voices.
I really don't.
Okay. B, C. Alrighty. Yeah. It's A, Dexter, B, Malta, C, Tux. Let's see what Twitch chat's going to go for here. My vote's in. Reveal it.
I think,
I don't know if I'm right or wrong. I'm just fucking guessing. Oh, I was right. Get fucked, Twitch chat, you little bitches. All right.
Okay. One of the few cases where the Twitch chat is actually losing.
Because Dexter was playing for Winter Fox for a while there. I think that was like he took a little bit of a break or something. I could be wrong.
I actually wasn't sure.
Something like that, yeah. I mean, he wasn't at the first one because they only had Chiefs there.
Yeah, because
Tux, Malta, Ents, and Bex, and Alice there.
There was a weird thing going on in that time. All right, next question.
In what team did
Oh my
Sonny
God.
play before joining Penta in 2017?
Was it A, 3D Max, B, Rocket, or C, ENTS? Well, ladies and gentlemen, can you get this one right? Sonny, what team before Penta? We're talking PGL Major 2017. The shit went down in Krakow. It was a grand final between Immortals and Gambit, one that we quickly forgot about. Get your answers in. Lock it in, Twitch chat. Can you keep up with me? I voted. Reveal the vote. We've both gone for ENTS here. It's a nice little trick question coming out from Prof and Virtual. He's going to land one, staying ahead of Twitch chat.
I like how you're like having fun with this. Like we could easily like read this out ourselves, but I love how you're having fun.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep this going. The intensity. They can't keep up with the pace. All right. Which player won 2 ECS LAN finals? Was it A, Magisk, B, Nico, or C, RPK? Twitch chat, can you get it done? Can you answer the questions correctly? 2 ECS LAN finals. That's 2 of them. 2-0, Magisk, Nico, and RPK. Those are the questions. Here come the answers. Will we get it right? I think I fucked this one up. The correct answer is Virtual. Well, he's absolutely fucking wrecked you guys because you dumb fucks all thought that the 2 ECS trophies that Australis had with Magisk on the team, but they weren't. You cunts can't even Google this shit. Anyway, let's fucking go.
This is like
They
how
had
is Twitch
3.
getting so much wrong.
They
I've
had
won.
3 with Magisk and like 5 altogether. So
I've won.
you literally won. You literally
I've won.
won.
I've actually won.
But there's one more question,
All
right?
let's
Still,
there's 2 more.
There are 2 more
questions.
questions.
Two more questions,
Let's go
I'm sorry.
perfect, boys.
All right. Which player was playing what?
What
That's all the question
is
says.
this?
That's all it says. Which player was playing?
The question is chicken coop in the snacks 1v4 clutch on cobblestone.
Okay, which player was playing the chicken coop on the Snacks 1v4 clutch on Cobblestone? Now, for those of you playing at home, that would have been against Na'Vi, just in case you don't know where the names Zeus, Simple, and C's come from. Lock in your answers, A, B, or C. Get this one right. Don't fuck it up. Birchall's gone for B. They've gone for C. Whoa, guys, you got it wrong again.
Are you kidding me?
Now, let me explain to you why the answer is simple. Where is the best place to play B-side Cobblestone? Chicken coop. Who is your best player? Simple. Who are you going to put in the fucking chicken coop? Simple. Use your brains, Twitch chat. All right, last
This
one.
is
Here we
by
go.
far the most Twitch chat has gotten like wrong.
Listen, look at these guys getting
Ever.
fucking bent over a barrel and reamed on out. Which team has Crystal not been a part of? Was it A, Alternate, B, Sprout, or C, mousesports? Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Lock in the last one.
That's
Crystal,
easy as
German
fuck.
player, currently playing.
If Twitch chat gets this wrong,
for
this is
Godsend.
rigged, dude. Like if Twitch chat gets this one wrong, this entire thing is rigged, and I'm accusing both of you of being a part of it and not telling
Man,
me.
I should have said to Martin if I win this that we fucking sports mode just becomes the regular mode on HLTV or some shit. That's what I should have fucking doubled down or something. All right,
How
well,
did
there
you
go.
get this wrong though?
Man, I don't know.
How is
Fucking
that
give 'em one.
possible?
All right, that's 4-2. You guys lost. Let's keep this moving. We're going straight into
This
the
is
EPL drama.
the first time anybody has won against Twitch chat. I'm just gonna put it out there.
Thank you guys. I'll accept my
Amazing.
trophy. All right, let's get into the fun stuff here. Let's not worry about this quiz shit. As the number 1 narcissist in Counter Strike, I'll let it go. All right. So for those of you who missed it, Prof, you want to summarize this one? No, actually, Striker, you summarize this because I know Prof's going to be a little bit more. He's going to be a little bit more harsh, so I'll save his harshness for a little bit later.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, which part do you just want me to
Give us the whole drama. What
Okay.
kicked off? Why did this all? What happened?
Well, the grit, the main grit of it is that Pro League in all of its regions, which is Europe, North America, and the Asia Pacific region, or Asia and Oceania, whatever, was 48 teams in the previous seasons, right? Well, this season that's been cut down to 24, which is the main part of the issue, right? A lot of those teams that have been part of the previous Pro League seasons, or that have qualified, or that would have had a chance to qualify, not who have qualified, because those 2 teams actually made it through, which is INS and Force. There you go. Those are the MGL winners. They were actually given a spot in the new Pro League season, but obviously a lot of those teams, both of those that went into relegation, and some of them that didn't, that would have had a spot in any case, got cut off, such as Sprout. Like we actually have a pretty good list of teams who have gotten cut out of the 24 teams. But that's basically the gist of it, right? That's the thing that most people have a problem with, especially the teams that have obviously been cut off, because this prevents them from playing in the biggest league that there is, right?
Now, before this all went down, we had the show with Yanko, and I remember making comments on the last show, and I was like, yeah, look, if this rumor is true, because I think DK's report had come out at that point, like, if this rumor is true, what teams are we losing? And I was probably a little bit flippant. I was probably a little bit dismissive of those kind of names. I was like, they're not good teams anyway. Why should they be in the Pro League? I didn't kind of think about the bigger picture of like what that means for all those regions and stuff, because now the understanding is it's a 24 team situation, and it doesn't look like it's regionally segregated in the same fashion that it was before. So with those
I think
teams,
you have to zoom in a little bit, because
okay,
it's going to be tough to, or maybe not. I don't know. I'm actually watching.
Now, there's a couple of things here that I don't know. The problem is, like, I'm going to say this shit, and I'm just trying to be fucking logical here, and I probably end up getting labeled as some shill or some shit, and that's fine. I don't give a fuck. But like, how can at one point all the rhetoric and conversation be TOs are not making any money, we need to restructure or look at how we're doing things and try and do it better to make money, and then they go and they restructure the stuff. Now, a lot of people here have lost their scalps. Now, I think the sense of the matter is that it's the way in which they weren't notified that is the bigger drama. Do we think that there is a drama overall, though, with ESL trying to change their Pro League format to be more profitable? Do we think that in itself is divisive or bad or anything like that? Prof?
I mean, the biggest issue, I guess, is for the North American side of things, because they feel, when you look at the team list that are actually in Pro League, there's just a bunch, like a couple of North American teams. So all of these teams below that, and some of the teams that used to be in Pro League, are not going to have access to it anymore, and their opportunities has been going down and down for the last couple of years. Like, going back to it, they used to have like all of the same access to big tournaments, and then we have the Brazilians coming in, them getting some slots, and then overall NA slots going down. So I saw a lot of like them complaining, but at the same time, it's more of them not being as competitive that caused this. It didn't happen just like out of nowhere. It's just that these teams were not being that good. My camera seems to be freezing all the time. I don't know why. I think I'll just like unplug it and replug it. Or
just to explain the sheet, right? Just to understand how it's been put together. Like, the teams that all of these teams who are listed are now without a spot, and they would have at least either had a spot in Pro League or would have at least had a chance to qualify. And that little mark, like the splitter, is there just to signify like which teams would have had a spot, which is like Big Hellraisers, Singularity up to Asurus, and then Order up to Vici. And then the teams below the mark are the teams that would have had to qualify through relegation, right? So either they placed last in their group of Pro League, or they ended up second or third in MDL, which is Havu, Spirit, Riot Squad, and Triumph. And then there's this LA League winner, which I don't even know if it's going on yet or what's happening with that. But it doesn't really matter anymore, because obviously that team would have not had a chance anyway. So yeah, just to explain how
okay, so Optics dead, RC's dead.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the
Strike-through
teams are the teams that just don't exist anymore, that wouldn't have a spot anyway. We assume, unless it got transferred to some other other team.
The three teams that actually got kind of fucked are Big, Hellraisers, and Sprout. Those are the teams that are kind of in the area that they probably could or should be in this kind of a league. They're on the edge there. And then maybe Havu and Spirit could have qualified. So yeah, taking away that from them. I mean, overall, the whole... It's not a thing that just happened now. ESL has been super bad with explaining relegation and promotion ever since they started changing things like 2 or 3 seasons ago. So there's just a continuation of the same thing, which now got to a point where the change is much bigger and much more like long-term. It has much long-term impact. That's why everyone got upset. It's not one issue from ESL that suddenly happened. They have just been systematically bad, and no one cared about it because it's tier 2 CS. Of course, some people that didn't care about it magically care about it now because of different reasons, which I won't go into, but people can like see just like magically people turning around and having interests that they never had before, which I find funny and just find it's just a joke overall.
I just wonder about it, the actual like what they actually lost on not being a part of Pro League anymore, because obviously like when you think about it, like a lot of these teams, if they don't make it to the finals, their exposure is very limited. They're only part of one group, or they were only part of one group that was only played in the span of 4 days. They only played maybe 3 matches. So like that exposure is very, very, very small. Like unless you get to the finals in the previous format, obviously this season it's going to be different because there's going to be a lot more playtime overall, I think, or at least that's how it's presented. So like this season, obviously that would have changed, but I don't think that their exposure from ESL Pro League before was that massive on like a team-to-team basis if you didn't make it to the finals.
So look, if I'm going to look at this, when I was in Renegades, one of the big things with us moving to the States was if we could get a Pro League spot, and we were able to get a Pro League spot, and somebody else got cucked at our expense for that, right? But it was like there was no other way for an Australian team to compete. There was like a lot of factors, and we actually don't need to get into that now. But what I was going to say is us having a Pro League spot was a big thing for us, like as part of the organization. Obviously, you still have to qualify for the finals, like you're saying. But I think maybe that affects the North American teams more than most. Like for the Asian teams, right? If we look at, I know the Order, Avant, Chiefs, they will probably get some very marginal salary of some variety in Australia. I can't say that I know that Lucid Dream or fucking Boot or any, like Vici obviously get a salary. So outside of very few names in the Asian Pacific column, I would say that a lot of those teams we would only be looking at as semi-professional teams in the first place. Like if we're going to be honest, if we're not going to beat around the bush here, but if we're going to,
I mean, their Pro League wasn't even like Pro League. It was just online, a couple of groups, like 8. I mean, similar to what Striker says, but not even on LAN, not even like a big following or anything. Half of these, like all of these Asia Pacific teams, like putting them in the same category as the European and North American teams that lost a spot, I think it's kind of even disingenuous. It's more like a glorified qualifier than a league.
Yeah, and this is kind of what my point was last week when I was like dismissive of these things, is because I think that the gravitas of what they have on what I think the best league in Counter-Strike, or a league in Counter-Strike with tier 1 teams should have, it shouldn't look like the way it looked. And it was obviously something which was more inclusive, right? But do those teams also play, like I'm pretty sure that I've seen them playing in the Pro League and then also playing in the Mountain Dew League and then going to global finals if it doesn't overlap, right? So there's been especially
Order played in both.
Yeah, so there's been like a weird overlap in the region in the first place. So I think that it's really bad for these teams to the communication and not being notified in the direct way, and that's going to be detrimental for some people's basically entire years or potential careers. Or some organizations might look at it as a negative thing, but realistically, how this harms tier 1 Counter-Strike, it basically doesn't. And do all of these regions have MDL to still qualify to the global finals, where if they win or come second in the global finals, then they can qualify for Pro League? Like it might just put more emphasis on those tournaments, right?
Yeah.
Like
I'm only not sure about the Brazilian Latin America part, because they used to have a slot, but then with a lot of the Brazilian teams going to North America, then they just moved that slot over because of visa issues and other things also coming into play. So I'm not sure how that is going to be dealt with, but I foresee ESL finding a solution for getting the South American teams also a slot at MDL, because now the top 2 teams from MDL will qualify for Pro League, right? Was it 2 or 1?
No, just the first one, and then
winner.
second and third went into relegation.
Yeah. But yeah, what I also touched on before, but I didn't mention then, the issue with ESL not announcing the relegation system. They did it for the first season of last year. Then for the second one, it was the same thing. The issue is that like a team like Hellraisers or a team like Big, when they were playing that group stage, they needed to know that there's at least a chance of them not having a chance to requalify or go to relegation, because it was like presumed, because of the first season in 2019, that even if they finish last in the group, they go into relegation, where they still have pretty good chances to go through against like MDL teams to requalify back. And the way it played out for them, and also like if Big won DreamHack Open a month ago instead of Godsend winning it, they'd be back into Pro League.
Yeah.
And now Godsend, just because of the timing, them hitting form, winning some good tournaments, they got the Pro League spot. Like all of that together is it's random as fuck, and it's kind of bullshit towards these teams, because it's not a small thing for a Sprout or for a Big or Hellraisers to not be in Pro League. Not that much because of the exposure. We touched on everything about viewership and shit like that before, but it's just like a badge to your team when you approach sponsors. Like, we are in the best CS:GO league, and that's it. So for them, it's not a joke.
Yeah, I think that it's those outlier positions which are the most affected, right? Because if you looked at this, and if we didn't know that if we were going to be completely impartial and there was no overlapping leagues and there was nothing like that, and you said, yeah, we're going to get the top 24 teams in the world, or we're going to get the top 20 teams in the world with some regional emissions here so that we can establish, we can keep that strong forward-facing view in Asia with Tyloo, and we can have Australia with Renegades, and we can have South America with INTZ, and we can, the thing is with those, if you were just going to invite from 1 to 24, the best teams in the world, like for your league, that would be kind of the way you want to do it, right? But obviously these outliers, because of what you just pointed out, Godsent now being 25th based off some recent results, obviously Big going up in the rankings now to 22nd, they jumped 24 points, right? Like, so that point you're making, well, this is with your rankings as well.
I was just about to check the Pro DSL ranking if that's would have actually been true there too.
SPUNJ, just one thing, like, do you accidentally have an alarm going on, like from your phone, from for the whole episode or something like that?
What do you mean?
Because it seems someone in the chat was also spamming it, but I think when you talk, I hear like something very quiet in the background from time to time, and it's weird.
I think you're hallucinating.
No,
I might be crazy.
No one's home, but it could be the fan on my laptop.
I mean, yeah, okay. I can hear like something white noise typey, but
it really sounds like the Android. Like literally like my alarm, and someone put it in chat now, like a couple of minutes ago. So I'm like, maybe it's
I don't know if it's some fucked up frequency that I can't hear, but
maybe I'm
have not picked up on anything,
and I should be panicking right now. But no, I don't have anything going on. Okay, so we covered the teams who are affected. We spoke about them. We looked at
Big 27, still way below Godsend, by the way, in Pro League. ESL ranking.
Okay. Okay, so then all this drama unfolded. There was obviously they released a graphic that said these teams were invited, which that also stirred up.
That definitely wasn't great.
Now, do you think it's bad that they released that saying invited? Do you think that's a problem?
Yes, I do. Just because, like, I'm fine with this becoming the standard, but obviously that hasn't been the case, right? So while this isn't the standard, obviously people will take invited as confirmed at the event, because that's been literally every single event has approached it this way. Like, very rarely have we seen anybody say, okay, these are the teams that we've invited, we're still waiting on confirmation on some of those. They're waiting until they actually get confirmation to actually announce them, because like obviously otherwise they're just using those teams as advertisement when it actually might not be the case that they're going to be part of the league, right, or part of the tournament, whatever it is that you're hosting at the time. So yeah, sure, I'm fine with it becoming the standard for organizers to announce like everything that everybody they're inviting. But while it isn't, it wasn't great for ESL to kind of portray it as if they were confirmed.
In the text of the announcement, it did say that they're not.
Confirmed, right? You know how people were going to take it anyway, though. Like they knew it for sure. Like that, there's no doubt in my mind that this was intentional, right?
Probably.
Like this, there's no way it wasn't. Like this, like I said, this is not standard practice. So for them to suddenly opt for that had to be a move.
So you think that's coming in response to the stuff coming out from the B-side?
Well, of course, it has to be a political move between the two, like to kind of like make people think that EPL is going to have all the great teams. And look, it might be the case that they will. Like from everything that we've heard so far, it's going to be the case. At least like it's looking like that's where we're heading. Whatever like B-side is kind of hard trying to say, or Thorin anyway. So sure, like I'm fine. Like they're probably going to be there anyway. But obviously at the time when it was announced, that wasn't the case.
Yeah, I want to point this out, and this, because we're talking about ESL, it's obviously going to sound like it's in defense of ESL. That's fine. This is in defense of all TOs, because I've worked for the majority of them. When I've been at certain events, conversations with teams or with players, or this kind of stuff has happened on certain levels where problems have arisen, and then like ESL, or let's just use ESL as the example here, have gone on out and they've made like a post, and then it's been received negatively from the community after the players have all either given it the okay or they've been the ones who have wanted things a certain way. The players and teams never come out and defend against that, which makes sense. Nobody wants to put themselves in harm's way, and if the TO will take the brunt of that, it's fine. But like my query here, this came out on Friday, right? Like this came out on this graphic announcement was on Friday, if I'm correct.
I would have to check.
Or was it Thursday?
It was a day after the DK report, right? That's why, from my perspective, anyone that saw the DK report, which had all of the same teams and said these are the teams that it literally said the same thing. It was just ESL copy pasting what DK said and said, "Oh, yeah, this is true. This is more or less it." That's why
it was Friday.
That's why, from my perspective, it was like it's pretty obvious. I mean, not for the plebs, it's not obvious that invited. It's not really invited in terms of what we used to use it. But for anyone that's following all of these things, I think it was pretty obvious that it just means these are the teams that we offered a spot, and if they want to take it, they'll be able to take it.
But I mean, if you only saw it was, you have to take into consideration that.
No, I said for like plebs that don't follow it in details would not
look. People who didn't see our post first and only saw like that Instagram graphic or the ESL post would not have taken it that way. I took great care at like presenting it the right way, that it's just like the preliminary list of teams. Even it wasn't even in the headline, that it was obvious that it wasn't a final list of teams that were actually in the league, and I did that deliberately because I knew how it was going to be taken. So that's like, for people who didn't look at our post first and looked at all the other stuff, they would have 100% taken it the wrong way, because I did at first. When I read it at first, I did not realize what it meant until like I got into it a little bit more.
They're just mad because they got you.
No. I mean, I put it out the right way, right? I don't care, like, as long as I actually like the final product. But they could have hidden this fact from me as well, and I would have been none the wiser until somebody actually told me. Like, so it was just tough to see how it was received.
What teams have come out since that graphic and have said they're either in or they're out? NIP, I saw a tweet
NIP,
from
Complexity,
somebody.
and Astralis now kind of, right? So those three teams, I think they're the only ones that actually have said anything, at least as far as I knew. Like, it's possible that some of the ones have commented. I didn't.
There's a list of teams on Reddit that retweeted from their official Twitter.
Oh, there is? Okay.
If we want to go by that.
I mean, sure, but it's like that's.
But that doesn't mean
still
anything.
Doesn't necessarily mean, yeah. Like, I think Complexity and NIP both said explicitly that they were going to take part of something. NIP for sure. I didn't see the Complexity one, but we said it in one of our reports, I think, with Astralis. So
if we were going to speculate, anyway, can we get that graphic up just for reference sake?
You mean
if we can send it to Lucas and we can get it up.
I'll find it and I'll send it over.
But this one here, like, I know I just live in a world, right? If that graphic was released on Friday, and apparently all the teams who were on the graphic or who ESL were wanting to sign, maybe not all the teams, maybe just the more high profile ones, would have had some representation at this meeting that they've been going on to try and sign the teams. I don't know if I live in a world where I think ESL wouldn't have said, hey guys, like, gotten some, either let them know that they were going to be tweeting this or asked the question or had like some, like, surely there's been some process here. It doesn't feel like ESL would just, maybe they did. Maybe I just find that like hard to believe if all the teams and the management, everybody were on site in the same place and they don't like check before doing something like that.
I do agree that that's very likely that the teams kind of signed off on this being released, but obviously the way it wasn't great.
Like, if we look at this and all these 24 teams end up signing on at the end of it, and this whole drama just it was for nothing, then that's like, the question then becomes, okay, so now ESL, they have all the teams that they wanted. Do they have all the power in this space now? Well, that's a debate for, I guess, another time. I guess we're looking at the drama that unfolded about, like, I think it's painted, and I think that you're leaning in this way, Striker, that the way that they released it was disingenuous or kind of skewing. They were trying to get a different result. Is that where your thoughts on it?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so Striker's linked you the article.
Yeah, I did
Lucas.
now the right graphic, not the
if
not
you can
ours.
just bring it up, that says the one that says all 24 invited teams. We don't need to delve too much into the wording or anything like that, but I just kind of wanted to have a chat here. So it's only really the big dogs or teams with really big followings that ESL have to worry about, right? Like locking down, because if you're fours, if you're
you don't want to miss out on Pro League if you're one of the like a top 15 team and lower, right?
So yeah, fours have to say yes, Godsent have to say yes, Heroic have to say yes, INTZ have to say yes, Renegades have to say yes, Sharks have to say yes, Tyloo have to say yes. To some extent, North, because they don't have the lion's share.
I think Tyloo are kind of in a position. I was actually kind of surprised that Tyloo weren't part of Blast, just because I thought like they would wanted to tap into the Asian market. So that was kind of a surprise to me a little bit. But generally, Tyloo, I'm not entirely sure they're part of the same like rank of teams that you're looking in, because they've obviously been the biggest team to come out of Asia, like in all of history of CS:GO. If we did disregard Oceania, obviously.
Yeah, I just want to, because if people who are listening to this or come back and watch this or whatever, like this position for me to be in, talking about this stuff on B-side, Blast, EPL, Pro Tour, all this shit. I'm not in the same position as other members of the community who have done a fantastic job of building their own profiles and other ways of having money. Like if I scorn any of these motherfuckers and I make myself some enemies, I don't have a job. I don't have any ancillary ways of making income other than this podcast, and Martin doesn't pay me enough. So I'm trying to be as like politically correct and like in the middle here and looking at things as openly as possible, which isn't normally me. So yeah, this is a tough task.
Yeah, but I mean, it needs to be said that you have been involved with ESL for quite a long time. So
yeah, and because of that, certain TOs don't hire me, and certain TOs look at me as ESL's boy, which is, I guess, through my own doing of choosing to work through for them a lot. But like they were the ones, them and DreamHack gave me my first gigs, right? So loyalty goes. You
don't have to explain yourself, man.
Well, I just did. All right, guys, I'm loyal. Loyalty gets you so far until they start throwing big checks at you. And then you got to start looking at their different questions. But we've got the teams on the screen right here. Is there anybody else in that list that I was just peeling off who we think has to say yes?
I kind of forgot which teams you said, but
I think the discussion isn't even about the Pro League teams, because the discussion is about member teams. Those are the teams that's
true,
that would join ESL into this kind of partnership agreement where they get part of revenue shares, and they get to go to events, certain events. They get the preferential invites.
Well, importantly, they stay in the Pro League because it's like a franchise spot,
and they can't get relegated. Yeah. Right? Those are the teams, and they have. I forgot the number.
How many was it supposed to be? I think 16. Even no.
It's around that number. It doesn't even matter that much. I think
I just forgot that. But I think it's like 16.
Those teams that would then be locked in for that 4 to 6 year period, depending on what they want to do. That is what the ESL is trying to lock down. And then the other teams are, as you said, it's irrelevant. If some of these teams don't want to come, they'll just invite Big or Hellraisers or Sprout or some of these teams and fill the lower ranks, and they can shuffle them in later. The question is to get like the Astralis, Evil Geniuses, Liquid, and I guess mousesports,
said at
fnatic,
least 13. I'm just
those teams to and G2 probably, just from an org perspective, kind of big, to get them to sign the membership agreement and become like these, I guess, preferential parts of the league. And that's what they want to do right now.
So that's kind of where the big boys play, I guess, right? That's almost a similar thing to the 6 currently franchise teams in B-side, right? Like it's the big boy tables. I guess Blast is maybe that, but expanded to the 12 teams who are included. And then you have the other teams who are coming into play in the showdowns who are on the outer, right? So for people, I guess the easiest way to understand those teams, if we just call them all member teams for all the different leagues or all the different products that they're currently involved in, those are the ones who are signing on, you would assume, for like longer deals or all that kind of stuff, right? So that's the whole revenue situation that we're talking about, and making money and the longevity and this and that. I guess that's where that focuses on.
Look, one thing that we haven't really touched on is the fact that ESL waited until now, and actually I apologize for that, right? Which is something that we kind of need to note as well, because we haven't talked about that yet.
Lucas, just turn the clock off. We don't need the timer for this shit. This is the juice. People want to hang around for the juice. Get rid of that motherfucker. All right, so the apology that came out at the same time. ESL's apology. Fuck, did I miss it? I know that I saw the stuff from CSPPA.
It was at the same, basically at the same time. Almost.
Yeah, okay. Give us the TLDR on that one.
Well, just generally, like Ulrich Schultz, who is the senior vice president of product. There you go. I had to check that one because I'm never sure about the actual titles. But he just issued a couple of tweets, or like a thread of tweets, where he apologized for the way that this change has been communicated to the teams that have been affected, right, negatively, that have been cut out of this of the top 24 that are participating. Obviously, like yeah, that's the gist of it. He just apologized that it could have been handled better than it was, considering that they've only been told about this change days in advance of the start of MDL, where they have been like automatically relegated.
Okay, so the way we framed it here is ESL's apology. Does it help? I think it's like any apology in life, guys. This is another one of those things you can take to your relationships, to your schoolwork, to your parents, to any of this stuff. If you do something that is considered very bad and the other party reacts adversely and you fucked up, all you can really do is apologize and then hope that you either don't do that again, or you have something in place that you can make it better with. Usually buy them flowers, they like flowers, or you have some way of coming in here and going, look, this is the compromise we can make. Now at the moment it's just the apology from ESL. Prof, what's your take on this whole scenario?
So obviously you have Carmack in chat, or at least, oh, here he is. The takeaway is for him to like send flowers to the big guys and all of these other teams.
Yeah, send them flowers. Maybe some chocolates. I got a website you can use. It'll send flowers every couple of weeks, so you don't have to keep reminding yourself about your significant other.
Yeah, I don't know. We kind of touched on this before. As you said, if they have things in place to avoid these kinds of issues moving forward, and just be clear on the issue that it's not like people didn't ask. People are asking about these things for a year almost. What is happening in relegation? At least say that there's a possibility of something happening, so people are aware of it, and that's the easiest way to fix it. Obviously, you can't know a year in advance how everything's going to work out, how many teams you're going to... These are details that get changed all the time. But just like having people know that there's a possibility of something, that's like the bottom line, I feel like.
Okay, I just saw a question in chat before as well. Just somebody asked about ESL Pro League, like how do teams, I think the term they used was shake down, but I guess what he moves is like move up, move down. Is there any relegation, right? And we touched on that just before if you missed it, but there is relegation. I guess if you come last two, you go out, and then I don't know how it works, but something from the global finals. I
don't think the exact mechanic has been announced yet, but it's like part of it is supposed to be through Global Challenge. We know that.
So that's Mountain Dew League. So they play just like, so we're in the same page.
From all the Mountain Dew Leagues, like people go to the Global Challenges they have so far, and then some of those teams will be able to make it through to season 12 anyway, right? So to the second season of 2020 anyway. Yeah. But part of it is apparently, which is something that was revealed in that series of tweets, I think, was that there were going to be ways to ensure regional representation, and it's put this way. So I feel like there will also be like some maybe qualifiers that will be outside of MDL. So some open way to actually make it into Pro League, it looks like. That's how I understood it anyway.
Okay, but otherwise...
But I guess the main part of it is going to be through MDL though. Now,
I think that Pro League always had like a pretty difficult relegation system, right? Like it changed a lot. The relegation did change a lot. There was points of which where if you just came last, you were out. I think that's how it remained, right? But the way that teams... No, it was a little bit different last time.
Right? I mean, they don't have the last place anymore for the last two seasons. They had 4 groups, so then they removed that. It was changed. Then they had the Virtus.pro
I think it's important,
fan vote and all of those.
It's also important to know that these member teams can be relegated, right? So I wonder... Well,
you said that member teams can be relegated? I guess if they come last.
They can.
Cannot.
Yeah.
What happens if they come last then?
They
must be able to be relegated.
Someone else gets relegated.
I guess just the bottom 2 teams outside of, or bottom X teams outside of member teams. I'm not entirely sure. This is like something that's obviously going to have to come out later.
Well, they're going to have to. You're going to have to be able to relegate them, right? Like, I guess actually we just spoke with B-Side and they said their member teams don't get relegated.
Yeah. No, they don't.
You have plenty of spots to like circulate if you don't have like the latest report from DK said at least 13 will be member teams. So there's like 11 teams that can potentially be relegated, I guess. So there's definitely going to be like enough teams to choose from. It would kind of suck if like the bottom 11 teams were all member teams. Like that would just suck for ESL. They would have to relegate some team that actually made it like to the top 8 or whatever to make it to the finals or some stupid way like that. But obviously that's not gonna happen.
All right. Well, Carmack has just said in chat, I'll come on the show at some point and explain.
Yeah,
this, so
I think. Well, when he says this, I think we can say that we've been in contact with him and trying to figure out a date to get him on that fits him and us as well.
Okay, that'll be cool. So the last one here, do we have anything else from the ESL drama that we want to dive into?
I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay. So then the last one here is what power does the CSPPA have? And that's because a lot of questions were kind of framed towards the players who are a part of the CSPPA of like from the community. Why aren't you doing something about this? And I think that people have a much.
Okay.
I think they overestimate the power of a union traditionally, first of all, because people go on strike in unions in different careers worldwide, and sometimes nothing happens. You can fucking just not go to work and not get paid if you don't want, and that's kind of the same shit that would happen here in Counter-Strike. But I think that people overestimated the amount of power that they had.
I think they also overestimated like the issue at hand. Like, would you like? At some point, obviously, this is not ideal for the players, for some of the players, but it's a small percentage of players that got affected. And overall, everyone is saying, as we touched on before, we need to restructure things to have more sustainability. So if for this, you expect people to go, like players to go on a general strike, I think that's just unreasonable overall. I think, of course, there's going to be discussions and pushbacks, and they came out and said that they're unhappy. And that is more or less what you can. This is not like someone stealing away every player's livelihood. So then they're going to go on a general strike and say they're not going to play in any leagues until something is resolved. It's not that big of an issue, I feel like.
It's a weird one. It's definitely a weird one here, because I think that everybody thought, it was every man was helping every other man out there. But like, it's going to be a process that takes time. Right, like first of all, you need to establish the top of the top of everything. Like without the top, right, actually being able to be at where we are now, there would never have been a reason to get a player union, right? And I think it's shit that these people are being affected negatively. And as ESL said, they apologize for that. It doesn't change the fact that there will be some flow-on effects of this. It just feels like it just feels like it was not the perfect storm for this whole situation to kind of go down. It's oversights, right? And I think that's a couple of the problems when it leads to this. Is a lot of the problems we don't even know, and this is in life as well, you don't even know you're going to have that problem until you get to it. Now, do we think that the CSPPA is going to be effective as a whole? Do we think it's been effective to this point?
Well, it's very hard to say, like, considering we don't have any insight into like what kind of meetings they have with tournament organizers, what their like the actual demands are, because so far we've seen fairly little, and it's relatively, how do I put it? Like obviously, like with king beds and whatever like that, obviously it's a relatively minor, right? The demands that they have at this point, at least like in the grand scheme of things. Obviously to them, these things are like, some of these things are actually kind of important, obviously, like with standards of PCs and standards of tables and things like that. Those are actually the important things, but obviously are fairly minor on the grand scheme of things, and not as important as something like teams getting snubbed out of Pro League spots.
I think like the thing with this is, I think the funniest thing is the whole ESL CSPPA thing that I alluded to at the beginning with Semmler, where they put out like this announcement of an agreement, like groundbreaking, historic thing.
Yeah, no details at all.
With no details. It was just like an empty PR just to spin it. Okay, so we're just like patting our own back how awesome we are. And 10 days later, we have this situation where half of the Pro League teams are cut, and allegedly none of them knew. They only found out about that like a day before it was announced. So in a span of 11 days, CSPPA goes from we have this historic agreement, everything's awesome, great cooperation with ESL, to, oh, we had no idea this was happening and we are disappointed with the I don't know, resolution of this case. It's like, how can this, like, something does not like line up there. Something it sounds like bullshit.
Yeah, but I think it's just important to know that obviously players can't just demand everything, right? They can't really tell tournament organizers how to run their business, which is just something that they've kind of argued, especially Scoot has argued on Twitter while he was talking about this thing, as his personal opinion anyway, not as part of the association. But that's kind of the important caveat to this. Obviously, like, tournament organizers have to find a way to make money. We've talked about this this entire episode, and this is a way to at least try to do that, right? This is a way to create a product that tries to do better at making money. So, like, to what degree can players really tell tournament organizers what they're going to do with their product when it doesn't really affect how their livelihood, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
so
I agree with that, but just if they're even talking, if they're at that table, which they announced they are with that super cool press release, then they would know that this was coming, and then they would inform their players who are a part of CSPPA.
Yeah,
I think
fair
that
enough.
So if that doesn't happen, then something's not right.
But none of the players on the board of CSPPA would have been affected by this, right? I don't know all the players on there exactly.
Yeah, of course not. There's like Chris J,
names.
Elige, and these guys, but
Yeah.
you don't have to be a board member to be a member.
No, I know, but where's the information getting to? Like, am I saying, did those players even know to tell their union, the bosses above them, the people running the union, did they know about it, like, and not think it's a big deal? Because then that is where to look at, like, we're assuming first of all they knew something, which we don't know if they did, but then we're saying if they did know something, well, where are we looking here? Where did this is all stuff we'll never find.
I'm not pointing fingers at the players specifically. Like, I'm just saying, like, as a entity, that should be something that they're looking out for, right?
Look, we can definitely assume that a lot of those teams knew way ahead of time, or a lot of teams that are part of, or well, not part of CSPPA, but just like a lot of the players obviously knew ahead of time that they were going to play in Pro League, or the version of Pro League that was going to take place, right? So obviously this was known months ago, like behind the scenes at least, and the players must have been one of the first to know. So that's the point here, right? Like, should CSPPA have informed these teams, or should they have expected ESL to do better? Did they not know that these teams weren't even consulted? That's also a possibility, right? So that's all like something that we can't really know.
Yeah, and this is like the ecosystem as a whole, because like we obviously have the elite level teams, we have big brands, like we know how they function within the space, but it's like those lower teams. Now, I think, there's obviously space for them, because it feels like we're having a tier 2 circuit kind of open up. But like we already spoke about what all this kind of means. I think, look, I'm going to be honest here for a second. Unless we actually have like super locked in franchise, like unless we run Counter-Strike like they run the NBA, I think we already do way too much for these players. Like, and I was a player. The thing is, I think I'm just bitter and jaded because I've missed out on all the fucking perks, probably, and that's probably why I'm like, this is fucked. But I am on the side of things now where I hear we're losing money. I say, oh, can we do this idea? I get told, no, there's not a big enough budget. Can we try this? No, there's not enough money. Oh, we need to get a set. I'm on the side of hearing no because of the money. The players aren't on the side of hearing no because of money. The teams get paid from Wesser 7 flights and accommodation to every event. But they're not owned by the league or the TO or anything. So what money is the TO making off for these people? Okay, so they come in, they play in their tournament. We're going to pay them prize money as well just for showing up. And then we're hoping to generate enough viewership to, first of all, get the revenue from that viewership, which is sponsorship or the figures watching, to then get even bigger sponsors. That's what they're having to bank on as a TO, right? Why the fuck, when these players are the only ones making money, right? And teams are saying they're not making any money either. Like, how is it at the point where a TO is having to now fork out more? And this is the problem I have, right? I think we've scaled way too quick. I think Counter-Strike, like, as a product, has scaled like fucking ridiculously. It's just so insane that we're trying to run an arena-sized event every second fucking weekend and fill it with players who are all getting paid 30,000 euros a month or more or something fucking ludicrous, right? Like, I'm obviously overinflating a lot of those figures there, but we're talking about real life-changing chunks of change being thrown around. You go back to 2013, people weren't making
Look, most of
money.
teams in 2013 weren't even salaried. Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
Maybe the top 10 teams were at best. I think
We've scaled.
Nah,
so
I don't think.
quick.
I don't think 10 teams were solid.
Maybe
think
3
even
or
that.
4 if we're lucky.
Yeah.
Like for just me as my example, I did not become a professional player until we joined Renegades. I was back in CGS. I got paid, but we were me and Henry were talking about this the other day. CGS, they said jump. I said how motherfucking high. They were the ones paying my bill. They were the ones flying me around the world. They were the ones putting me up. They were the ones telling me, hey, Chad, you're going to play in MR9 format now. Me as a Counter-Strike player, MR9 format, that sucks. But me as somebody who wants to have a job as a professional Counter-Strike player owned by a company, I'm going to do as I'm told. The players now are owned by organizations playing in tournaments. And then it's just the whole landscape. We can't even get voice comms of players and use it because they're too precious. I was going to say
something about this topic now that you brought it up, which is something that the B-side has come out with and has kind of like used as advertisement for their product, is that the fact that the teams have actually bought in or will buy into this league means that they will have better access to the players, because obviously like the actual teams have vested interest in the league.
I mean, the teams are the league, essentially.
Exactly. Right? Like, the teams are the league and they have interest in making money off it. So they will have interest in like having access to players as much as possible in order to make money off the content, right? So that's something that I'm sure will be a part of it. Like some of these things that haven't been really possible in other products like ESL Pro League or Blast or whatever are actually going to be possible in this B-side league because of the implication that the teams are the TO, basically. So I'm kind of hoping that like starts a change in this sense, where players will be willing to give up a little bit more of their comms and things like this, where they're going to be a little bit more real about what they say in interviews or whatever, just to make things more interesting, right?
I think we need to push that point right there home as well. And you guys get fantastic interviews because you guys have been doing. This is HLTV I'm talking about. You guys have a fantastic rapport and shit, but. I think the thing is, like, I'm not going to name any names of teams here. You guys all know what I'm talking about when I mention this. When a player's on stage and being interviewed about something in a post-game thing, and it's just been like a super emotional match, and they get asked a question, and it's like they give a 2-word answer. Fucking shoot me in the head, because you are detracting from the broadcast, which is designed to make you more money. You were literally. It's not funny for you to think that your personality as a country is nothing. That's not funny. You can fuck off. You can fuck off. Your job as a professional player also has to be to Forrest did it for the longest time. He never did a fucking interview, so props to Forrest. But you have to, unless you're the best players in the world, you have to give something. You have to give something if you want to hang around and make some good money. Because right now, the amount of money you're making, it's not going to stay like that forever. It's probably not going to, ever go back like crazy $2,000 a month or some shit. But where we are right now, how are we going to keep doubling and tripling and going up from there? The people who tune in to watch are the same people sitting here watching right now and love it when I start to get all fiery and shit, because they want to see people trying to be real in their own element. They want to, this is what we tune in to entertainment products for, because we want to see real shit. Like replying with like a 2-word answer, and people are saying in here, I'm burning ants. I'm not. It's not just ants. There's so many teams that do this shit. Like, I was a bad player, so I told myself I'll try and be the most entertaining person in the fucking room. Well, it's, like that's what I did. That was my go-to. But it's just like, we're looking at ways to make money. Well, we have to milk the most we can, We have to milk the most we can out of these players to help give back to the broadcast. I need to do a better job as an analyst to give you viewers more things to be excited about. We all need to do better, right? But we've just scaled so fucking quick. I don't even know what day it is half the time. Anyway, we got off on a bit of it. We got off on a bit of a tangent.
Yeah, but I'm just hoping that this what you're frustrated about, and I understand completely. I do. I 100% agree. And even from like some of our interviews, obviously there are players who get very PR, and like I'd love it if they opened up a little bit more, about like rivalries and fuck that player, whatever. Obviously they don't have to go that far, but just generally, like, obviously they hide a lot of the emotion that they have. And like, sure, that's understandable to a point. Yes, I get it. You don't want to get the hate from like the other team's fans, but to a degree, like that's just becomes boring, right? So I'm hoping that the B-side league will, like entice a change in this sense, where people will start realizing, okay, that this is what we can start doing to make content more interesting, right? So yeah, that's one thing that I think B-side has gotten right, and that will probably end up happening, hopefully.
Prof, you got anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on top of all of this, what you already said, is that especially with B-side, one of their selling points is towards the players, that they're going to have bigger revenue share. And some of these teams, even I think Thorin even said himself, as like Dignitas is being overpaid. So we have people being new teams coming in. So of course you have to pay more. There's more competition from organizations to hire players, so they need to pay them more. So that is going up, and the revenue share towards players is going up. So there's no indication that players will be earning less moving forward. So at least they can do more from like their standpoint in terms of adding value. And I think that's the main point that a lot of people have been talking about for 2020, is like players need to do more.
But so as well as that, because I pointed a pretty vicious cannon right at them there, because realistically it's across the board. Like we need to work out, and Semmler was saying this as well, and he's bang on. We need to work out a model that actually works, right? Or at least a way of doing this that actually works. And at the moment, we've been floating along. We've been doing pretty good. Like I think the growth of Counter-Strike, thanks to all of these different TOs who are running tournaments, thanks to Valve for being able to run these majors and do all this kind of stuff. Obviously, we all know if Valve grabbed this thing with both hands and decided they wanted it to be something fucking amazing, they'd probably ruin it. No, I'm joking. They could invest all this money, and they could probably find a way to make it. They could push it in that direction. But this is kind of the natural growth of the game with Valve being hands off. I look at all this stuff and I think, does anybody have an answer, or does anybody have an inkling on how we make more money? Like, you would think in a demographic, which is, what are we talking about now? 16 Counter-Strike fans have to be pushing, like, for the majority now, have to be pushing like 30, like maybe as high as like 35. If you're going like 16 to 35. Now, I'm probably going to get called a fucking sexist here, but I'd say the majority of our viewers are probably men. And then I'd say that the majority of us need computers to be able to do the thing that we love, which is going to cost us a bit of money. So you would say that the income of these people is probably above the average income. So how are we going to get money out of the fans? How do we get that back? Like, I don't have any answers, and my job is like around broadcast all the time. I have absolutely no idea how to monetize these people.
Something that I brought up earlier was Valve doing a better job at this, right? Because obviously they're trying to have a little bit more say over what the calendar looks like with this major ranking system, because they're going to have like direct influence over 2 more events over the course of the year, or well, technically 4 if this is going to become the standard, right? 2 per major. So for 4 more events that are going to be like probably pretty big, since they have to be like 24 teams from the start, they're going to add like $1 million over the year. Like basically they added like another major prize money on top of the 2 million that we already have from the 2 majors. So yeah, that's obviously that's a part of it, right? They can help with the prize money, but they can also do stuff for like other, especially like in-game kind of skins and I don't know what you can do, but just something about the teams that can help with monetizing the league or the tournament and stuff like that people will buy, and that will go directly back to the organizers, to the players, whatever. We already have a system like that in place for the majors, so why not for like a few more tournaments, especially these major ranking tournaments that could help. So yeah, like this is a way to do it. That would be the easiest, I think, just because Valve has such a direct influence over the fans, right? Because those fans, most of them will play Counter-Strike, most of them will have some skins in their inventory and will be trying to get some of these skins, will want to support their teams by buying a skin or 2, and it's the easiest thing rather than buying a jersey for $80 or whatever. So I just think this is one of the ways that we can get there, and then obviously you can get into discussions like pay-per-view content and things like that, because I think that's also where we're heading at some point, because at this point every broadcast being free to the end well, like the end client or whatever, to the fan, Obviously not to the actual broadcast studio, because some of them are actually paying for rights to broadcast some of these tournaments, and that's how they actually get revenue. But yeah, these are some of the ways.
Yeah, it's just a wild one, right? Like, this is something which is this is why I say that I think we've scaled too quickly, is because it's going to take us a long time to play catch up, to like make all the money that we're spending right now seem viable and worthwhile. It's just like I always get disheartened. Like, for those who missed it, True Sight, which is the documentary around TI winners, which is OG from last year, but they just had that airing, right? And I think when I was watching it, you guys, I think I heard Prof say something like he's so concentrated or some shit. I was watching this thing like before we went live, and I'm sitting there and I'm captivated by. I've met NoTail, but other than that, like I don't know any of these other individuals really. I don't really watch a lot of Dota. I watch it when the international's on, but I'm captivated by what they're showing me here, the way that the players react with one another, what they're talking about in their drafts. Like, I don't know Dota enough to know like if it's a good or bad draft, but I think it's the same thing we seek as human beings for all this shit, right? Is like we want to feel like we're part of something. And like Valve just this is where I was going with this, was like it kind of sucks to be the black swan compared to fucking Dota, which is obvious. Gabe obviously likes Dota, right? Like, imagine that after our majors, having like getting to see the teams talking, and it's just, anyway, fuck it. Put a bow on this shit. Let's do the good, the bad, and the ugly, Lucas, and close the show down. All right, we're back. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we're going to start with the good. The good is big triumph with the new lineup. Prof, I think last show round we didn't have too much hope. I don't know if that came from you. I don't know if it came from Striker.
It definitely came from me. I didn't explain it in a decent way, though. I just said they played 2 games, didn't see anything good from them so far. Like, not much to go on. So that's why in that tournament, which was super open, and we were doing the fantasy as well, maybe if fantasy side Tabson was super cheap and I'm super dumb for not picking him just based on he's a fucking amazing player, and we all know that. But other than that, as a team, and like, anyone could have won. And they're the lowest ranked team, I think 46th going into the event. And others were like top 20, top 30 teams. So obviously, I think I don't think anybody
expected them to win, though. Like, I feel like they were. I mean,
you could predict it, but it'd be random as fuck. There is nothing to go on to say they would have done this.
I feel like most of us would have all been leaning towards probably the
one of the Danes.
Probably. Yeah. But I think the standout for me is probably how quickly Keto and Sirison felt like they were just fitting in. You know, it didn't feel like there was.
Yeah, there weren't that many like hiccups from like, you know, from the team play side of things and like smokes and whatever. It seems like they've been putting in a lot of work, actually.
Yeah, and they own, like, I'm gonna say they beat VP Avantgarde 16-8 to open things up. That's quite a big scalp to take. And then I guess most of us would have been like, best of one. Then they took down Renegades 16-8 again. Then they had a 2-0 victory over Heroic, which is a big victory, and then a 2-0 victory over Renegades in the grand final. So Renegades overperformed. I think we can throw them in the good basket. It was also a very good debut for Hats. He had, like, before the grand final, I think I was astonished at the fact I saw that he had like 6 1vx situations, which is good. You could already see that firepower increase. And Dexter, like, was just an absolute monster in a lot of the games that they played there. But we don't have to talk too much about Renegades. I wouldn't mind talking a little bit more about Big. Did you get to watch many of the games, Striker?
Yeah, I saw like three of their games. I think one of the groups they won against the not Vanguard, Virtus.pro, and then the final, and I think a part of the semifinal too, actually. And just generally, like, I was impressed with how much work they've been able to do with the little time that they've had. Supposedly, we don't know how much they've actually practiced, but I assume they were one of those teams who got together very, very early on and started boot camping and practicing and making sure they catch up with, with their 2 new players, because it was very apparent that they had a pretty deep playbook. The 2 players were seemed really dialed into like the overall plan. They didn't really step out of line too much. Like, sure, I saw like some hiccups from Keto that were pretty obvious that they didn't rehearse properly. That will probably get fixed like as time goes on. But that looked like a team that has been playing together for like half a year at least, or a year or something, that's just been together for much longer than they have. So that's just the impressive part for me, how quickly they've been able to mesh together.
They seem like a pretty puggy team, though. Like,
Yeah.
most of wasn't the grand final, I think, against Renegades, they were just playing, like,
They were really
mirage,
fast, right?
Contact plays, trading out on A side, B side.
Yeah, but
And
their
then later-
spacing was amazing, though.
The spacing was good, yeah, and they were constantly trading positively. It's not like the Renegades guys were, like, shitting in the bed. It was just either the first guy doesn't get the instant kill, or if he does, he gets traded instantly, and the smokes are in place. They get the site to win the after plant, and then later they started playing, like, complete random, like, face it style bullshit. Like, one guy's in A house, one guy's in B house, and just, like, they get the entry, then the guy gets the flank, and it was just Renegades falling apart completely.
Yeah.
Even though they weren't, it didn't seem like like, if it was played again, it could have been a different game. It felt like that. If some things don't go badly for Renegades in the grand final.
I'm going to say that Renegades go into that grand final. This is not detracting from Big. This is more what is a learning curve for Renegades. They go into that grand final already feeling like they've overachieved. Because I think, I made a tweet about this, a lot of people, when they hear Renegades, are expecting a team like that to be in the grand final of or at least the playoffs of a DreamHack Open. But it's not that team. It is Greyhound, who realistically before that, they had never been in a grand final of a tournament of that caliber. They'd only been playing in, like, we're talking what, like Zowie, Zotac Cups.
Just regional stuff, basically, yeah.
Yeah,
Asian tournaments.
So for them, that's a huge deal. So they've gone in there probably already feeling that they've overachieved, probably a little bit complacent. And if you can't force a team to respect you and play against you as they should, which is what happened against Big, of course they're just going to do that puggy shit, man. Like, back when I was playing and no one respected us, they would just run at us, right? That's what you do. Because if you can get away with it, you're just going to get away with it.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to the bad. This one here is going to be real good because I know Martin's probably still watching. The Danes. Neither Heroic, Mad Lions, or North performed particularly well. I think let's start with Mad Lions because...
And they performed the best out of them just because they beat the other two, right?
And I wanted to grab a point I was just running with right there with the Renegades. And we were talking about, them potentially being complacent in a grand final. I think this is a learning curve for Mad Lions as well in being complacent going up against a team that you probably on paper should be beating. I think that maybe a little bit of that could have crept in. Maybe we can get Hunden on to ask him the questions there. But I know Renegades did play well. But Mad Lions, they couldn't really get things
Dexter
going.
played really well in that series,
He was great.
He was amazing.
It was very difficult for them to read some of the gamble stacks and some of the pushes and plays that he was doing. But I think that Mad Lions, from that respect, maybe this is just a learning curve because for them to go consistently to playoffs or consistently to finals, it's still new for a lot of these players, right? Akor, Shush, for example, Bubsky, these guys are still relatively new to this environment. So I think it's probably just some of those teething issues. But Heroic feels like, to me, they've dropped off a cliff a little bit.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if I actually saw any of their games, though. I'm trying to remember because I watched the semifinal, I remember this in Mad Lions and Renegades, but I don't actually remember watching any of their games. But I'm looking back through what they actually played. They played against Big, which is where they lost in the semis.
Least, right? North,
they beat in the groups to get out of the groups, so that's big. But yeah.
I mean, they were the team that was kind of aiming to do better than this. Like, they're the team that wants to win this kind of easily and build on this moving forward. So it is kind of worrying, especially like at one point it seemed like they had all the best pieces in Denmark, like that were not in Astralis and then maybe North even. But it seems like it's super open in terms of these three teams. Like, even though Mad Lions beat everyone online and then now on LAN again, so they're kind of stabilized, I guess, as the second best team, who could have seen that coming, I guess, with Hunden. But Bubsky, Akor, and the two of them mostly have been
Akor is fucking sick. I was just like, I've obviously known like how he plays for a while, especially when they won V4. That was pretty obvious already there. But since then, I think he's only improved. I think he's such a sick opper.
Yeah, so those two are getting some recognition, and then I don't know, the rest of the Danish scene, not really sure. I think we can take away. Yeah. What is his rating for the tournament? I didn't.
1.03. Like, you want to hear this because we're going to bring up North in a second as well. Gade was the highest rated player for North. MSO was the second highest rated player.
That's rough.
Right. Gade came in at 1.16, which is a pretty good performance. I guess, it must feel nice not to have to in-game lead. Then MSL's come in at 1.09. The next closest on his team is Kirby with a 1.02, and then you go down to AZ 0.91, and then you have to go down to the bottom 5 to find Cajun at 0.8. So for North, in terms of that, if Kirby and AZ aren't fragging,
I mean, they're meant to be their stars, right?
Yeah.
AZ, I feel like hasn't really been that for a while, but Kirby was in a good spot, at least. Even like considering where North were as a whole, Kirby I thought was in a pretty good spot for like the majority of the second part of the year, ever since Gate took over the in-game leadership, or even since Valde did. Basically, for the entire last year, I thought Kirby was definitely improving, or at least an improvement over the previous year. But yeah, this obviously, if those two can be the stars, what are they even doing on the team, right?
Let's do this. Let's do a Danish watch. We'll check in every 3 months. So we'll check back in where are we?
Before the major, basically.
We'll check back in at the end of March, start of April, of where the Danish teams are. Now, at that point, when we come back for one of those shows, right now the three of us are going to pick individually who we think is going to be the second best Danish team out of all those. I think it's going to be Heroic.
I'm not sure. I want to say Mad Lions just because they will have the most to play, I think. Because there will be there will be also a nice challenge. There will be a nice challenge. They will of course they will play a shit B-side as far as we know so far. So that's the bad part. But they're gonna be in that.
We could feel it out. We don't have to go just by the rankings. We can kind of feel it out, like who's played who. Maybe there'll be some more domestic matchups. Maybe there'll be a DreamHack Open.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Kind of hard to say without knowing what they're gonna play. Because North and Heroic are both in EPL as far as they know, right? In that invite list.
According to that graphic, yes.
Yeah.
I'll still go for Heroic overall over Mad Lions. I think North with this lineup, I don't know. It's very
I think
hard to
MSL is a very good pick, but I think that the door's closed on Kirby and AZ of being,
I don't think it's done for
superstars.
Kirby. Kirby was super young when he started. C still has. I think AZ has not been. Why even talk about it? It's been like so done about all
I kind of agree on
Poor
Heroic
AZ.
actually. Now that I'm thinking more about like what they're gonna play, since Mad Lions aren't in Pro League, which is like the best place to be in terms of like competition.
But they
Mad
could
Lions,
just beat everyone in the other league.
obviously they could win. They at this point they are actually in a spot where they could win B side. So sure, yeah.
We'll
I can
get
see
Peter
that.
in. He can tally up all the metrics and tell us who's the second best Danish team. Just pick one striker. Don't be too methodical about it. Give us your feeling.
Just pick fucking Mad Lions because
I think it's Mad
picked
Lions. Yeah.
Heroics.
I think it's Mad Lions because I think, especially because of Bobsky and Acor, I think they're still ramping up. I like how they've improved.
Okay, and then the final thing we're going to talk about. Do you guys have anything else with the Danes? I don't feel there's too much about the Danes.
Not particularly. I think North also one thing that needs to be said. Like it was MSL was such a recent pickup that obviously like at that point they haven't really been able to work out everything. So that's also something that kind of needs to be considered. They obviously ended up last out of that trio because they went out in groups and lost to both of them actually. Lost to both Mad Lions in the opening round, then to Heroic in the deciders, as far as I remember. So yeah, of course, at this point they're looking like the third best, whatever, team. But like, who knows where they're gonna improve in a couple of months?
not including Astralis.
Top 4 team, whatever.
And then if we start ranking the Danish in-game leaders, well, we'd have to go not including Glaive and Carrigan, and fucking hell. All right. The ugly, the final one of the good, the bad, and the ugly here. It is getting pretty fucking ugly right now for Virtus.pro, previously known as Avangard. They went out in last place. They lost to Cloud9.
Can I just say something? I didn't really call that they were going to go out last, but I did say that they could easily lose to anybody because that's how they've been playing.
Jay had his like worst event ever. What is it? I need to find the rating.
That was real bad though. I know.
Something depressing. 0.68.
Oh my god.
For good old Jane.
You see the tweet that came out from, I think it was from Dustin afterwards, the coach?
No. What did he say?
I feel like I saw him made a tweet. Let me check.
I hope it's like some excuse like...
No, it wasn't. He said like we're not playing... Maybe it was from someone else. Maybe it was from like Kicker or someone.
Kicker, probably Kicker. Kicker
tweets quite a bit.
tweets, stuff like that.
Yeah, but I never noticed this.
What's Dustin's Twitter? Does he even have one?
I think he does. I'm pretty sure I've seen him tweet.
It wasn't kick it because all he said was hard work didn't pay off. I can't find Dustin's Twitter right now, but I swear he said something. I know that he said something. It was like, we're not playing as we should and we need to fix it. Like it was.
Quite certain he does have a.
Maybe I'm making it up. But I know I definitely read something that was worded. It wasn't super strongly worded.
I just found his Twitter, but
it was VK. It wasn't on Twitter. Okay.
VK.
Okay, he has a locked account.
Wonderful.
That's done. So you have to actually get even like not just that he has a locked account. It's not that just you have to follow him. He actually has to sign off on it.
I can't remember verbatim, so I won't talk too much about it. But I know that it was saying like we're just not playing like ourselves at the moment, and that won't be accepted or tolerated or something along those lines. So Virtus.pro Twitter. No, I'm not going to start reading chat.
Well, the important part here is that this is not the first time that they've gone out lost. First of all, but obviously this might be the worst event that they've done it had because they went out last at Epicenter to end last year. Before that, they went out in a Pro League. Am I right? They played like three big events before that, if I'm not mistaken, or at least two. There was another one. I think it was Pro League. I'm trying to remember them because
I don't know what the other event they wouldn't have been in Pro League.
Oh, there was it was they played at
ECS
Leipzig Epicenter Summit. No, Summit was the wrong one, right? No, Summit was the previous VP. I'm looking at the wrong.
I have it open. Last place DreamHack Leipzig, last place Epicenter, last place at ECS, and then 5th to 6th at CSPPA Asia Championship.
ECS, okay. Oh, that was what I was thinking about. Yeah.
Yikes.
But just generally, they've gone out in groups in like 4 or 5 consecutive events now, and now even at DreamHack Open, where obviously not the best teams are.
So this is just like another Gambit situation, just under a different name with
rough. Yeah,
4 different players.
Rough.
Yeah, they basically dropped off the face of the earth.
Yeah, since that first place or second place at the major and then first place at the Moscow Blast, they've literally only gotten out of groups once at like what was it, Champions? No, not Champions Cup. Whatever. There was some event right after that where they that wasn't even like a top tier event. Where they maybe like no, I don't remember. Maybe it was Rotterdam, yeah. But anyway, it wasn't a big event anyway. And since then, they've just gone out in groups every single time, or at least in the bottom half, because CAC was actually playoffs top 6, right?
I guess the question here is: do we see them bouncing back, or is this roster done as we know it?
I think this roster is definitely better than what they're showing.
Do you think that someone gets replaced? Do you think this is where like a SPUNJ or someone gets the boot? Like what do you think happens?
You can definitely find a replacement in CIS for a SPUNJ or for a Dren. Those are the 2 players I think that are logical changes. Like Kicker and Buster and James are the trio that you probably keep. So
the fact that Dren is underperforming to this level is actually surprising to me. He played better in FaZe, where he had like God knows how many like problems, attacking him from all angles with communication and stuff like that. Suddenly he just dropped the face of the earth.
Here's a suggestion. So because of the coronavirus? Is that what it's called? Because of the coronavirus in China right now, Mo and Dozier won't be going to China. So hear me out. Just hear me out.
No, you're not going to pull out another like reunion and just putting them in a fucking WWE league.
What if we get Dozier and Mo? They come in. They replace Sanji, they replace, James, he's out as well. Now you've got a Dren, you've got Dozier and Mo, and then Zeus, well, he's fucking retired. You get that kind of you get Zeus in there, and then I think Hobbit's playing for someone, but like Windstrike or some shit.
Probably could be easily acquired though.
Yeah, but we get Hobbit, and we do it all again. And we just do it under a different banner. Anyway, we're basically saying that they're fucked. Boys, do we have anything else? Oh, because we've run 2.5 hours. We've smashed this one.
We need to finish this off. I have people pinging me for Faceit, so
yeah. I can't play any more Faceit. I got really, really mad today, and I have to leave tomorrow. I got a little bit upset with that. But
did Minerva catch you, or did you get a ban?
I didn't get banned. There's no bans. There's none of that shit. But guys, this is for the viewers who've stuck with us. This is for the people who are going to clip this and use this later at any point. At the moment, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on Twitter. There's a lot of leagues. There's a lot of moving. There's a lot of shaking. Valve are changing things. The game's changing. The players are going to organizations. There's the union. There's the talent. There's the HLTV.org. There's the this. There's the that. There's everything. Let's first of all acknowledge the fact we are very, very lucky to all be part of an ecosystem that exists like this, because we have gone on a very long way. And I'm talking about how we've scaled, and I'm saying maybe we scaled too quickly. Maybe we did, but the place we're in right now is pretty fucking cool. Everybody here, every organizer, every player, every tournament organizer, everybody wants to keep doing this. Nobody wants this to die. Nobody wants this to be a thing that doesn't exist anymore. Everybody has their own views on how we're going to get from point A to point B, of making more money, of having more viewers, of having Counter-Strike as the thing which every single one of you motherfuckers hanging around here listening to us talk loves. This stupid fucking game that becomes an obsession for all of us. Hopefully, everybody has the best interests of this and the future of this in mind. And that is what I believe that everybody has, whether it's B-Site, whether it's, Face It, whether it's ESO, ESEA, fucking Blast, Epicenter, everybody. Let's just, first of all, have a little bit of compassion for all the people out there doing these hard things, making all this shit and making all these tough decisions, because it's not easy. This is a world that's constantly changing, and we never know where it's going to land up or end up. So let's just close the show down. Let's all take a deep breath. Let's not call each other names in fucking pugs and shit. Let's just enjoy the thing we got. And remember, don't sleep on Cloud9, you fucks.
I needed like a beat behind it.
Anyway, let's turn the stream off, Lucas. We're done. Oh, wait. Off? Lucas, we still here? We're still here? All right, we're still here. Good. The next show, on the 3rd, we're going to have a guest. I don't know who the guest is yet. We're going to work it out. I think we know who it is, but we can't announce it just yet.
Well, we've alluded to it, at least.
It's probably going to be Carmack if he can make it. Anchor.fm, twitter.com/HLTV Confirmed, Anchor.fm/HLTV. Next show on the 3rd. Guests. That's what we call a fake ending. And
we haven't cut it in the middle of the sentence.
We haven't done one of those.
Anyway, bye. Now we're done.